Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Many soldiers, unaware of the situation, were incinerated by the searing beams from the pillars' massive eyes, and the front lines were torn open instantly. Hordes of beasts poured in, clashing with Ruck's soldiers. Servants like Ardina, Spartacus, Leonidas, Merlin, Anna, and Mash, tied up fighting the pillars, couldn't aid the soldiers. Without Merlin's illusions dulling their pain, the soldiers' fearless courage, and Spartacus' life-sacrificing radiant strike shattering 2 pillars, the situation would be even worse. It was a testament to Ruck's warriors that they achieved this much. I see. Receiving the expected answer, Roy sighed, looking earnestly at Gilgamesh on the throne. His tall figure, bathed in the ziggurat's sunlight, cast a long shadow. After deep thought, his expression shifted subtly, unreadable, before he looked up again. Gilgamesh, you said many of Ruck's gravely wounded soldiers, unable to fight and on the brink of death, are in the ziggurat, correct? Yes. That's right. Gilgamesh frowned, a bad premonition rising. Seeing Roy's serious tone, he answered honestly. They're under Siduri's care in the ziggurat. Why? I see. Roy nodded, posing his final question. Do they crave power? To return to battle, to slay the beasts themselves, to keep protecting Ruck? What are you getting at? Gilgamesh sensed Roy's strangeness. To ask such an unsettling question. If their lives and sacrifices only amount to pawns in someone else's game, that's too unfair for these warriors. Human lives aren't so cheap. So, I'll deal with these beasts and pillars my own way. Roy's eyes remained emotionless. He opened his palm, a white orb of light pulsing within, its faint glow swirling. The unique mana of the 3rd magic, an indescribable, terrifying power, was laid bare before Gilgamesh. This was the miracle Magi sought their entire lives, attainable only by reaching the root. The 3rd magic, the materialization of souls, a singular power. It wasn't merely for combat. Its infinite mana and extreme healing were but a fraction of its capabilities. Its true value lay in soul materialization. An absolute force acting on souls and life itself. By applying this orb to a human or living soul, the 3rd magic's unique mana could be bestowed. It could transform frail flesh into true soul beings, akin to high-tier phantasmal species, granting infinite mana and near-immortal bodies. In simple terms, they become his kin. Like a true ancestor creating dead apostles. Once, Roy viewed this power as a desecration of life, refusing to use it on anyone but himself, needing no kin. But now was different. The intruding demon god pillars and endless beasts were crushing the front. Facing this unfair battle, for humanity's survivors, he would unleash this life-defying power. He'd turn the gravely wounded Ruck and soldiers in the ziggurat into his kin. Grant them unmatched strength to counterattack the beasts. A battle of immortals against those wretched creatures. As a magician of the 3rd magic, he could mass-release this power for transformation. He could also etch his will and restrictions into their souls, ensuring control over his new kin to prevent chaos. You plan to turn those soldiers into such creatures? Sensing Roy's intent, Gilgamesh lost his composure, rising from the throne and shouting, Don't forget. They're human. Your actions are desecrating life, right? I know. But I've said I'll protect humanity's spark my way. This is the best method. I'll give them a choice, to die in resentment, returning to the underworld, or to offer their souls to me, becoming invincible heroic spirits, burning on to protect humanity. The dead rest, the living inherit, and those between life and death will sacrifice themselves. They'll become vital pieces in this war, and I'll use them to strike the mastermind's face. Indeed, those granted his power would become immortal soul beings. Even after defeating the beasts, they couldn't revert to humans, gradually losing emotions over time, becoming emotionless soul entities. But between waiting for death and burning themselves, Roy believed Ruck's soldiers would choose the latter. They were humans who transcended life and death, with radiant spirits. If they feared death, they wouldn't stand on the demonic front. Their true fear was powerlessness, unable to protect their home, returning to the underworld with resentment? The answer was clear, and he said no more. Though reluctant, reason told him Roy was right. There was no better option. Even if he objected, Roy would proceed, and it wasn't a forced fate but the soldier's own choice. After a long pause, Gilgamesh sighed, silently gesturing for Roy to leave. His exhaustion seemed to deepen. Roy said nothing more, nodding and exiting the ziggurat. As he left, he glanced toward the sacrificial tower. Beasts. Demon god pillars. Very well. You'd better pray I prepare slowly. Or you'll face the true wrath of a magician of the third magic. The tide is about to turn. Chapter 217, I shall heal all wounds, you shall be reborn your majesty, king of Ur. In the ziggurat, Siduri, still busy at work, set down her clay tablet upon seeing Roy's arrival, a faint smile gracing her face. Welcome back. Yes, I'm back. Roy nodded slightly at Siduri but didn't pause, striding deeper into the ziggurat. As he passed her, he spoke. High Priestess Siduri, compile a list of all the wounded in the ziggurat. I have important work to do. Why would you? Siduri, puzzled by Roy's command, couldn't grasp his intent. Her gentle expression faltered, and she turned to ask further, but Roy's figure had already vanished into the ziggurat's depths. Only his gentle words echoed in her ears, tell the warriors injured in this war that the Ascension ritual calls. I shall heal all their wounds, and they shall be reborn. Incomprehensible words, unclear intentions, yet a deep unease stirred in Siduri's heart. She wanted to press further, but Roy was gone, leaving only the dim flicker of torchlight in the ziggurat. Suppressing her unease, Siduri pondered briefly, then nodded, her gaze resolute. Clutching her clay tablet, she followed Roy's steps into the darkness, hurrying to catch up. Deep within the ziggurat, once a sacred space for divine rituals, Gilgamesh had converted it into a medical ward for the wounded. The priests here, while fulfilling their duties, had taken on the sacred task of caring for the injured. None complained. Good grief. What a mess. I knew it would be bad, but seeing it with my own eyes is still hard to accept. Roy gazed calmly at the chaotic scene inside the ziggurat's chambers, makeshift clay beds and warriors sprawled across the floor, leaning against walls and bed frames. Among them were Ruk's soldiers and many from Ur, grievously wounded during the trek across Mesopotamia. Though mortal, these were elite soldiers of the Age of Gods, not to be underestimated despite being no match for gods or servants. Each warrior could take on multiple demon beasts, Gilgamesh's pride, the backbone of the demonic front. Yet this army, armed to the teeth, forged through training harsher than Sparta's, embodying human will and spirit, had lost its dignity. They lay helpless on the ziggurat's cold floor, staring at the dim ceiling. How utterly wretched. In this moment, many soldiers, missing limbs and stripped of combat ability, couldn't hold back their tears. Last night, they fought heroically on the demonic front's walls for humanity. Now, they lay like corpses, tended by priests. Not only had they lost mobility, but they'd become burdens to Ruk. The stark contrast was unbearable. Some cursed the beasts' cruelty, others their own powerlessness. Why hadn't the beasts devoured them, ending their pain? Why were they left in broken bodies, awaiting death in the ziggurat? Why couldn't they have been braver, dying gloriously with their comrades last night? Some prayed to Mesopotamia's underworld mistress, Ereshkigal, begging her to take their souls and end their suffering. Sorrow, pain. A myriad of emotions filled the ziggurat. The scene was heart-wrenching. High Priestess Siduri, report the situation here. Even Roy, who had anticipated the grim reality, fell silent at the sight. Many had died, more were wounded, and now, utterly incapacitated, these warriors, tormented by their drastic fall and physical agony, had largely lost their will to live. They begged Siduri to grant them a swift death, to spare them this half-dead existence, a burden to Ruk. Yet no matter how they pleaded, Siduri refused. She gently comforted each warrior, preparing food and water, urging them to endure and never abandon hope. But she knew her words couldn't solve the crisis. For these warriors, returning to the underworld might indeed be better than lingering in pain. But Siduri knew such thoughts were wrong and never relented to their pleas for death. Your Majesty, due to the recent beast assault, thousands of wounded from the demonic front are housed across the ziggurat. Along with the injured from Ur who crossed Mesopotamia. They're receiving treatment on different floors. We're now in the ziggurat's depths, where the most severely injured are kept. As you see, many are on the brink of collapse. Constantly praying to Lady Ereshkigal for death. As Ruk's high priestess and the ziggurat's overseer, Siduri knew every detail, having swiftly arranged and transferred all the wounded. She was truly Gilgamesh's most capable aide. I see. Nodding, Roy turned to Siduri. High priestess, can you gather all the wounded quickly? Gather them. What? Are you planning? Siduri asked, confused. It's complicated to explain. Just summon everyone. I'll grant these warriors unmatched power and new life, giving them a chance to make the beasts pay in blood. Roy had no time to elaborate, glancing at the mostly maimed soldiers before speaking coldly. No need for questions or doubts. Just do it. You'll understand soon. The coldness in his tone felt foreign to Siduri, but Roy's presence here implied Gilgamesh's approval. As the king of Ur's command, all she could do was obey. Yes. Chapter 218, The Unstoppable Legion of Ascended. The day passed swiftly. As Siduri directed citizens to move the ziggurats wounded to Ruck's plaza, large enough to hold them all, the sky above darkened. Another day had slipped away. On the demonic front, the war raged on, marked by the blood and sacrifice of warriors. The conflict showed no signs of stopping. Every moment brought death, sacrifice, and more wounded carried to the plaza. Ruck's plaza lay under a pitch-black sky, devoid of light. Not even the familiar, hoped-for moon or a single star graced the deep night. Soldiers lying on the cold plaza floor gazed silently at the sky, a sight they'd seen countless times. Tears slid from their eyes. They could never have imagined their world would be overtaken by endless demon beasts. The gods had vanished, and human civilization in Mesopotamia was reduced to the solitary city of Ruck. They were the last humans on this continent, fighting and struggling against the beasts. Long ago, many weren't warriors, some hailed from city-states beyond Ruck. Tensions over land had sparked conflicts with Ruck, and they'd quietly cursed Gilgamesh's tyranny and arrogance, resenting Ruck's claim to the most resources. Their lives, though not lavish, had been joyful, filled with children, spouses, and cherished friends, living under the gods' protection and their king's guidance. But who could have foreseen such a swift, unheralded calamity? One day, the divine statues in the ziggurat lost their glow, and priests could no longer hear the gods' guidance. Then, terrifying beasts from nowhere swept across the godless land. Their power was overwhelming, their numbers boundless. Like a tidal wave, they crushed city-state defenses like clay. The battles were devastating. They lost their homes, families, everything. Kings fell, warriors were devoured before their eyes, and old priests died calling for Enki's mercy. But this time, the great Enki didn't answer, nor did he descend to perform miracles as before. When Enki's ziggurat collapsed under the beast's assault, all realized the gods had abandoned the land. The surviving humans were gripped by fear. City-states, realizing this truth, descended into madness. Kings pleaded for divine aid, to no avail. In their darkest hour, the king once reviled by all city-states, long absent, emerged, king of heroes Gilgamesh. Unlike other despairing kings begging the gods, he stood boldly, displaying a king's wisdom and mercy. He opened Ruck's gates to refugees from other city-states, mobilizing every resource to build an impregnable demonic front, halting the beast's unstoppable advance. Seeing the beasts stopped, many outsiders fell silent, staring at the golden king they'd once called a tyrant. They willingly joined Ruck, becoming its citizens, its warriors, in humanity's last bastion, resisting the relentless beast tide. Under Gilgamesh's command, things seemed to improve. Until the recent catastrophe. More, stranger beasts joined the fray, and countless fleshy pillars studded with eyes rose on the battlefield, gazing coldly. Like daemon gods, their power crushed any thought of resistance, tearing the demonic front apart in moments. As soldiers, they could only watch the purple beams approach, trembling, unable to resist. Against such nation-destroying calamity, fear was a luxury. Compared to these monsters, the beasts seemed trivial. They couldn't win. It was impossible. How could they defeat monsters from myth? He screamed until his voice broke, then lost his limbs to the pillar's purple light, reduced to a cripple. If not for the heroic warrior Spartacus, who charged fearlessly as the fleshy pillars threatened to annihilate the battlefield, his towering figure like Marduk himself, breaking through the beast tide to destroy a pillar, he wouldn't have survived. But what was the point of living? A useless cripple, unable to fight, tormented by constant pain. He was tired, so tired. Fleeing, fighting, losing life. Death was inevitable. He'd done all he could, living without shame. Now, he only wanted death, release, to reunite with his family in the underworld. His eyelids grew heavy. Was he sleepy? Good. He'd sleep forever, never waking. Tap, tap, tap. Soft footsteps echoed from the plaza's edge. Roy ascended to the center of Ruck's plaza platform. Your Majesty, what are you? Siduri, following, looked at him, puzzled. The ascension ritual calls. Roy answered vaguely, offering no further explanation. He glanced at Gilgamesh's ziggurat, then climbed higher. Master. Roy. Familiar voices reached him, Quetzalcoatlan Jaguar Man, drawn by the anomaly. His figure stiffened but didn't stop, continuing to the platform's peak. With each step, Powerful mana and pure white light trembled in the air, growing tangible. Blue eyes gazed down at the crowd, taking in Ruck's state. Tap, tap, tap. His ascent didn't pause. Everyone in the plaza felt a dense mana, a force affecting their bodies, beyond human reach, like a god's. Unlike later humans, those of the age of gods, living alongside ether, could sense ether, spirits, even gods, and detect changes in the environment's mana. Now, a godlike presence stood here, stirring the ether sea around Ruck, affecting their souls. What was this? The wounded below couldn't help but stare at the sudden, extraordinary mana. Its power and impact made Roy's mere presence undeniable. In that moment, all looked up at the figure on the platform and the white silhouette descending beside him. Another potent, unignorable mana. A blurred figure, radiating pure white light. Though humanoid, one glance confirmed it wasn't human. Pure white light filled its eyes, and pristine mana swirled around it like a cyclone. It was like a legendary divine warrior, powerful and mysterious. Though its face was unclear, many soldiers recognized it. A warrior of Ruck, one who fought last night, gravely wounded, losing both arms, reduced to a cripple. Why was he here, in this form? The white warrior didn't speak, and Roy, beside him, offered no answers. He silently gazed at the stunned soldiers below, then opened his palm, conjuring a white aura and gently releasing it. The cyclone-like aura floated from his hand, drifting above the plaza, then fell like raindrops onto their souls. White light touched their foreheads. In that instant, the warriors' souls were flooded with memories. Angels. Magic. The ascension ritual calling them. If they craved power, to return to battle, willing to shed flesh and human identity, the white light would answer. Pure magical energy would grant rebirth, making them like the powerful, mysterious angelic warrior on the platform. The mage would give them endless mana and ascendant power to crush beasts. They'd no longer be hindered by broken bodies, gaining a chance to fight for humanity again. The third magic's true purpose was never combat. It was to grant and transform. Soul materialization was far more than a mana perpetual engine. If Roy wished, he could swiftly bestow his power on humans, creating an immortal, infinite mana divine army, unstoppable in sweeping all foes. Countless white orbs rose in the soldiers' hands below. If you're willing, I'll grant you endless mana and immortal angelic bodies, freeing you from pain and fear of death. But the cost is losing your human identity, becoming my warriors, fighting the beasts until they're eradicated. A low voice echoed in their minds, the surge of power and wondrous soul changes intoxicating. This was the final warning, the last confirmation. They could still turn back. One step into ascension, and there was no return. But almost simultaneously, every soldier in the plaza made the same choice. Thousands of lights erupted, strange magical energy transforming them. Without hesitation, they swallowed the orbs in their chests, merging the rising white light into a white sun above Ruck. Praise the king, praise the great god of souls, praise Ruck. Raising his newly formed, powerful body, a soldier reborn from near death shouted. Praise the Father. A unified cry followed. As soul beings, all Ruck warriors raised their arms. Their bodies gained new life, their souls new purpose. Their minds felt an unprecedented clarity. The joy of rebirth and the sorrow of near death vanished. Only one thought remained. Follow the Father's will, eradicate all beasts. In the next moment, under the shocked gazes of Siduri, Quetzalcoatl, and Jaguar Man, these newborn divine warriors trembled, white light birthing broad wings from their backs. They shot into the night sky, flying toward Ruck's various fronts. The white sun above guided their path. In the deep night, white stars began to speckle the sky. Countless swooshing sounds competed in the air. Light fell, the prelude to war. The counterattack had begun. The curtain rose. Chapter 219, Turning the Tide of Battle on Ruck's northern demonic front. Arjuna, sensing the approaching surge of mana from above, froze mid-battle, his heart racing. He looked up at the white stars speckling the night sky. What is this feeling? It wasn't just Arjuna. Leonidas, directing soldiers nearby, also sensed the unsettling, terrifying mana from afar. Such immense power. Foolish Merlin, do you know what's happening? Anna, petite but fierce, sliced a climbing beast in half with her scythe, turning to Merlin, whose clairvoyance could see far. What's happening? It's not something I can explain in a few words, but to cause such a stir? You're truly enraged this time, my friend. Merlin's brows furrowed, his usual flippancy gone as he stared at the white silhouettes in the sky with a grave expression. What is this power? Soon, not only the servants but the sudden emergence of countless potent mana signatures, stirring the ether sea, alerted soldiers and beasts across Ruck to the anomaly in the sky. Even the demon god pillars commanding the battlefield from the rear were startled by this unknown upheaval. Something was coming, many things, with mana scales vast beyond belief. Ritsuka. Mash. Dr. Roman, stationed at Chaldea, shouted in panic, frantically tapping his detection instruments. His dark-circled eyes widened as he yelled in disbelief. The readings are unbelievable. I'm starting to doubt if Chaldea's equipment is malfunctioning. But thousands of mana signatures are approaching at incredible speed. Each one's mana rivals a typical servant. In short, over 1,000 servant-level entities are heading your way, with mana wavelengths unlike any magical being we've encountered. I can't tell if they're friend or foe. Be extremely careful, Mash, Ritsuka. If the worst-case scenario unfolds, take Mash and flee, Ritsuka. This is beyond your ability to handle. Seeing these results, Dr. Roman's face paled. Though reluctant to accept such absurd readings, his reason and instincts confirmed their truth. If the situation spiraled to the worst, he'd unhesitatingly spirit transfer Ritsuka and Mash back to Chaldea, then devise a solution. This wasn't about cowardice but avoiding pointless sacrifice. Against thousands of servant-level foes, the demonic front would collapse instantly, and Rock couldn't hold. Even if Ritsuka and Mash refused to abandon it, victory would be impossible, and staying would mean certain death. Sometimes, fleeing wasn't cowardice but a different kind of courage. 1,000 servants mana? Is that true, Dr. Roman? Hearing his report, Ritsuka and Mash's eyes widened, stunned by the revelation. After confirming with Romani, they looked up at the whitening night sky. Then their eyes widened further. Swoosh. 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 Before they appeared, their sound arrived. Terrifying mana coalesced in the sky, countless piercing sonic booms echoing from the clouds, followed by a rain of light lances falling like a volley of arrows. Whether it was Ritsuka on the battlefield or Romani and Da Vinci at Chaldea, all watched in disbelief. With the burst of blinding light, the battlefield's tide turned dramatically. What is this? As the light rain fell, the beast-dominated battlefield seemed scorched by intense heat, half the beasts melting instantly. The rampaging creatures vanished in the light, lions, scorpions, all evaporating without a trace. The light lance's radiance enveloped the battlefield, leaving no life, only scorched earth and white smoke. Then, a massive white disk descended from the night sky. Like a white sun, it bathed the battlefield, banishing Rock's darkness. Pure white light poured down, the giant solar disk radiating dazzling brilliance, like the miracles of the great Holy Father in Scripture, gently casting countless valiant angels onto the bloodiest battlefield. The white light dispersed, and countless divine warriors fell from the sky, raising their arms to conjure new light lances, launching another assault on a distant demon god pillars and incoming beasts. Another rain of terrifyingly potent light lances fell, vaporizing more beasts. What are these? Are the gods manifesting again? Rock's soldiers gaped at the pure white warriors. Such power, such majestic forms, they seem divine. Angels? No, these eerie things can't be angels, but they have immense mana. Phantasmal species? Where did so many come from? What's going on? Does Rock have such a trump card? The demon god pillars, orchestrating the beast assault, stared wide-eyed at the light seed's arrival, roaring in disbelief while enduring the light lance barrage. The sudden addition of over 1,000 servant-level warriors was enough to shift the battlefield's balance. Doctor. Are these white figures angels? They're so beautiful, so powerful. Unlike the frenzied pillars, Mash and Ritsuka were puzzled by these light seed warriors. They landed at the battlefield's forefront, forming a wall shielding the demonic front. Pure white bodies, wielding weapons of light and mana, with pristine wings, their mere presence exuded an indescribable sanctity and strength, like the angels of legend. No, they're not angels. These beings absolutely aren't angels. Romani Archiman swiftly refuted Ritsuka's question. If anyone knew angels, it was him, second only to the Lord. He was intimately familiar with angelic and demonic auras, able to discern their nature at a glance. These white soldiers were neither angels nor demons but pure beings of mana and soul, untainted. Rather than angels, they were closer to pure phantasmal species. Incredible, simply incredible. Not just Romani, even Da Vinci, the universal genius, marveled at the scene. Not only are there thousands, these white warriors are entirely composed of pure mana, with souls but no flesh, each with mana rivaling a servant. For such beings to exist in such numbers, forming an army, is astonishing. Even Odin's Valhalla army in Norse myth might pale in comparison. Though we don't know their origin, we're fortunate these white warriors aren't our enemies. Romani offered his opinion again. Ritsuka, Mash, leave the battle to these white warriors. Don't intervene, retreat with Rock's soldiers. Useless Merlin. What is it, Romani? Hearing his name, the silent Merlin approached. No, Merlin-sama, Please look after Ritsuka and Mesh. The 7th Singularity's events have far exceeded my expectations. You're the only one I can entrust them to now." Instead of bickering as usual, Romani bowed earnestly, surprising Merlin. It was the first time Romani had pleaded for his help. Though Romani Archiman had lost his former power and identity, this request carried weight, prompting Merlin to respond seriously. "Don't worry, Romani. These white angels. No, ascended warriors, I assure you, are on Rux and humanity's side. No need to fear. As for why they're here, I'd rather not explain." Merlin nodded, accepting Romani's request, then led Anna, Ritsuka, and Mash to the safety of the walls. He glanced aside, catching familiar icy blue eyes in the white light. Their gazes met, but neither spoke, only nodding silently. Below, the ascended warriors stood resolute, their eyes burning with vengeful intent toward the beasts. These warriors, survivors and wounded from the beast war, had their lives and bodies ravaged by beast claws, their loved ones lost to this horrific calamity. Even they were no longer human. Returning to the battlefield, they sought only vengeance against the beasts. For themselves, for humanity, they'd unleash the fiercest retribution. Roy, using the 3rd magic, had transformed their existence, turning these broken soldiers into immortal ascended warriors. But in gaining power, their human traits were stripped by the 3rd magic. Their souls purified, their minds clarified, human contradictions erased, leaving absolute purity. Vengeance. Only vengeance. The fiercest vengeance against the beasts. To eradicate every beast ravaging this land. Their shared, purest thought. Reborn, they had no other desire but vengeance. Facing the beasts again, their emotions could no longer be contained. The purest fire of vengeance burned in their chests. Roy, atop the solar disk, gazed at the ascended warriors he transformed and empowered, sighing. Through the 3rd magic, he felt their pure vengeful hearts. No hesitation was needed. Then. Kill. In the next instant, countless blinding light lances surged upward. They tore a gap in the beast hide. Thousands of radiant ascended warriors scattered like sparks, charging fearlessly into the beast tide, unstoppable. Pure vengeful hearts, endless mana in their blood, and immortal bodies. Newly born, they'd forgotten fear. Their sole goal, vengeance. To eradicate the beasts that ravaged their homes and kin, leaving none alive. With reborn hands, they'd tear beast heads, with conjured light lances, pierce their hearts, making all beasts meet destruction in blinding light. With their blood, they'd honor their lost lives and all humans fallen in this calamity, offering the beasts' lives to the Great Father. Kill. In moments, the ascended warriors became blurs, charging from all directions into the dense beast horde. Though thousands strong, compared to the surging tide commanded by the demon god pillars, they were negligible. The vast tide, capable of swallowing all, engulfed the scattered light points, swallowing the white sparks in moments. Under absolute numerical superiority, they seemed to make little impact, like droplets in the sea. This shocking scene stunned Rux soldiers on the walls, along with Leonidas and Arjuna commanding the field. What is this? They couldn't fathom why these unknown white warriors were so reckless, charging into the tide. They could have kept distance, repeating the light lance barrages to weaken the beasts. With their mana, a few more volleys could have significantly reduced the beast momentum. But to pit 1,000 against tens of thousands, an endless tide, why? Wasn't this suicide? They puzzled over the ascended warriors' actions. Before they could ponder further, the drastic changes in the beast tide explained everything. What is this? The white light points, swallowed by darkness, didn't vanish as expected but surged, coalescing, then spreading. In the next moment, the tide boiled like scalding water. Within the black tide, white light points intensified. These erupting lights transformed the dark tide dramatically. White, white, white. The white grew, soon impossible to ignore. Like white paint splashed on a black canvas, they claimed vast swaths. Countless white points dotted the canvas, each an ascended warrior breaking through the tide. Clutching pure white mana weapons, they reaped beast lives relentlessly. No tactics or skill were needed, their immortal bodies were their greatest asset. Painless, wounds healed instantly despite beast bites. They needed no weapons, conjuring desired mana arms with a thought. White light lances, pure light swords. These mana-forged weapons held terrifying power, slicing beast hides like clay, stealing their lives. The battlefield had transformed utterly. The once ferocious beasts panicked under the slaughter by thousands of white figures. Even their evolved abilities, tailored for the demonic front, were laughable against these warriors returned from hell, rendered useless. Now, the roles had reversed. Chapter 220, Before Dawn Arrives, Someone Must Light the Night Sizzle. The battlefield echoed with the sound of searing flesh. White smoke and the stench of charred blood filled the air. Blinding white light lances and swords pierced beast bodies effortlessly, their terrifying heat melting steel-like flesh, hissing loudly. Dark red blood gushed from wounds torn by the light swords, the beasts collapsing into ash before they could wail, nourishing the hellish battlefield. Roar! Another crimson lion-like beast fell easily. The ascended warriors, lost in the count of their kills, continued their relentless slaughter in the beast tide. Killing, reaping, repeating endlessly, despite hours of carnage, their resolve never wavered, their goal unwavering. Vengeance against the beasts. Their souls embodied this will, pursuing it at all costs. The demon god pillars and their beasts, the instigators, were utterly overwhelmed by these sudden ascended warriors. Seeing their meticulously crafted beasts reduced to prey, the pillars couldn't believe it. The beasts, born from Gorgon's authority, were mass-produced endlessly, infused with the pillars' unique concepts. These second-generation beasts retain numbers while gaining special abilities, becoming stronger in every aspect. They could evolve further, recycling dead beast corpses in the blood fort Andromeda's pool, extracting memories and data to spawn even stronger, more tailored beasts. To the pillars, Rock's soldiers' resilience was meaningless. No matter how many beasts they killed, it didn't matter. These enhanced beasts, unlike Gorgon's earlier creations, operated like a swarm, each with distinct roles and value. Even if killed, their corpses, returned to the blood pool, transmitted memories and data, birthing stronger, more targeted beasts. Rock's soldiers faced death constantly, while the beasts evolved endlessly. No matter how many were slain, the assault never weakened, only growing stronger. A prolonged stalemate ensured Rock's eventual fall. This was the Pillar's greatest advantage. But now, things had changed. Something far beyond their predictions occurred. These second-generation beasts were annihilated by the ascended warriors, leaving no corpses behind. A volley of light lances vaporized the first wave, followed by searing light swords melting beast bodies. The warriors' seemingly infinite mana surged, unleashing countless devastating light cannons into the tide, decimating most of the Pillar's carefully nurtured beasts. The battle's course had veered far beyond their expectations. Kill. 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 Gripping a blazing light lance, he pierced several charging beasts effortlessly, the ground beneath piling with their remains. Countless had fallen to his attacks, nourishing the battlefield. Once an Rock Gate guard, he now stood as a member of the Ascended Legion, guided by the Father, the Lord of Hosts, a blade-piercing beast hearts. Hiss. A beast's screech drew his attention, and he shifted his gaze. He remembered this purple, lizard-like beast clearly. Its climbing prowess, aided by adhesive secretions, allowed it to scale even the steepest walls. Days ago, these beasts had crept over Rock's walls at night. He'd noticed their intrusion, sending his swiftest comrade to report to King Gilgamesh for reinforcements while he and other gate guards fought to block the beasts from the residential district. These beasts were uncanny, not only climbing walls but spewing corrosive venom from poison glands, eroding brick. Unprepared for such creatures, they were caught off guard. His comrade died instantly, struck by the venom, screaming in agony as the poison consumed him. He'd been lucky, avoiding a fatal hit. Seeing his comrade's fates, he swiftly severed his venom-splashed arm with his curved blade, preventing further corrosion. As he faced death like his comrades, a purple-haired girl, around his daughter's age, arrived, her sharp scythe slaying the beasts, saving him. He was sent to the ziggurat to recover, and then... PFFT. His white light lance pierced the beast's body, surging mana shattering it into fragments instantly. He stood here, reborn in another form. Though he could now effortlessly slay once invincible foes, the guard felt no joy. His emotions were eerily calm, devoid of the thrill of vengeance or the glory of fighting for humanity. He killed only for vengeance, for the beast's destruction. He sensed his transformation, though he couldn't articulate it. While gaining immense power, he was losing much, precious human traits. Emotion, honor, even self. Kill. He tried to rekindle emotion through slaughter, but no matter how many he killed, his heart felt no spark. His once expressive eyes now reflected only calm and coldness. Swish. More beasts fell, skewered on the battlefield. The guard pressed forward through the tide. Any beast charging him was pinned and incinerated by mana in moments. No emotion, no joy, no glory. Only killing for the goal. This emptiness was profound. He'd known the cost from the divine voice when choosing this path. Power meant losing honor, human identity, everything, becoming a fighting corpse, eternally battling beasts to protect Rock. He'd chosen this path without hesitation, yet now. Why did he feel regret? He realized it wasn't regret but sorrow, regret. Even given another chance, he'd choose the same. His only lingering emotion was regret. Regret for not witnessing final victory, for not feeling joy at triumph, for not returning to humanity, regret. With his unnatural powers use, human traits faded faster, destined to vanish completely. Slaying beasts, the wooden pendant around his neck fell into the dirt unnoticed. Then, amidst the chaos, he paused. On the battlefield, he bent down, staring at the fallen pendant, motionless. The worn wooden pendant was unremarkable, just a plank, notable only for its carved words. He froze, then carefully reached out, clutching the rough wood tightly. He vaguely recalled. His daughter had carved this amulet, inscribed with his and his late wife's names, and a blessing. It read, "May Lady Ishtar bless your safe return, father." Now a walking corpse, nearing loss of self, but his daughter was in the city behind. The guard looked up, his gaze at the beasts flashing with final resolve, then he took a deep breath. Kill them all, leave none. He etched this will into his soul, making protection his obsession. He became immensely powerful. Before dawn, someone must burn themselves to light the dark night. He would be that flame, illuminating the darkness with his life. For those who loved him, and those he loved. Damn it, what's going on? Where did these things come from? The beast army was nearly eradicated by the ascended warriors, their once unstoppable assault gone. Anyone could see the beasts had no chance of victory, their total collapse a matter of time. The 3 demon god pillars commanding the assault on Ruk gathered, retreating to the front's edge, ready to flee. On a hill outside the front, 3 humanoid figures stood. They watched their painstakingly built beast army being slaughtered, their faces etched with deep reluctance. What now? Retreat, or throw in more forces? Rom asked his comrades. Retreat. This doomed battlefield isn't worth lingering on. Even more beasts won't turn the tide. Sabnuk replied. I agree with Sabnuk. There's no point in fighting a losing battle. We should report this to Barbados at the Blood Fort Andromeda. Rom added. If we don't leave soon, those eerie things will surround us, and escape will be difficult. Following Rom's gaze, Sabnuk eyed the Ascended Legion slaughtering on the battlefield, his eyes wary. But I never imagined Ruk had such a trump card. Why didn't they use it earlier, waiting until now? Unknown. Rom shook his head. But now's not the time to ponder. Let's go. Agreed. After brief discussion, the pillars resolved to retreat. But as they prepared to leave, their forms stiffened, an immense, terrifying mana crushing down from above, freezing their movements. What is this? Before Sabnuk and Rom could speak, a low male voice echoed, followed by mana burst, full power swoosh. A piercing sonic boom heralded a dark red light, engulfing half of Sabnuk's form, snuffing its life instantly. A tall figure descended, landing before them, dark red light lingering at his fingertips. Undoubtedly, he was the one who'd slain Sabnuk with a mana cannon. Sabnuk. Seeing their comrade die, Rom and Sabnuk roared in anguish. They glared at Roy's figure, eyes blazing with hatred and fury, then... boom. With a deafening roar, 2 grotesque fleshy pillars rose at the battlefield's edge, revealing their true forms. You bastard, you dared kill Sabnuk. Die. They roared, gathering immense mana. Incineration ritual. Incineration ritual. Countless scarlet eyes opened, searing beams crushing toward the small figure below. They unleashed their full power, intent on reducing their comrade's killer to ash. Crack. The sound of a shattering world. A white, radiant world emerged behind the figure, as if reality fractured. Roy stood before the white light, arms outstretched. Heaven him, to capture them alive, he deployed a reality marble around them. Aligning with the white world, he tore a rift in reality, and a massive white hand smashed through the reality marble. Look here, fools. The giant hand, whistling with terrifying mana, grabbed at the 2 pillars. They tried to flee, but in the white world's embrace, the hand's sure hit nature made escape impossible. Chapter 221 The Sleeping City. Welcome back, Merlin. How's it going? Is Roy still arguing with Gilgamesh? At Chaldea's in Stronghold, Ritsuka and Mash rushed to Merlin upon his return from the ziggurat. The events of last night were so overwhelming that they still hadn't fully processed them. The sudden descent of pure white warriors had turned the near-collapsing demonic front around completely. Thousands of warriors with servant-level mana effortlessly annihilated the beasts that had confounded them, executing a carpet-bombing extermination. In mere hours, the boundless beast army was reduced to battlefield ghosts, tens of thousands dead or fled. Had the white warriors not halted their pursuit, seemingly under some command, Mash and Ritsuka suspected they'd have chased the beasts to their stronghold. They weren't the only witnesses to this chilling spectacle. Soldiers, servants, and even demon god pillars on the front displayed varied reactions to these eerie beings. Even as allies, Ruk's soldiers felt more fear than joy toward the ascended warriors. The scene was too shocking, beyond imagination. When the ascended warriors joined the fray, Leonidas, wary of unforeseen risks, recalled soldiers to the walls and gates. He and Arjuna stood guard at the outermost gate, vigilant for sudden developments. The remaining soldiers, like Ritsuka, wore expressions of disbelief. In their view, the white ascended warriors reaped beasts like harvesters, their blades slicing through the surging tide, wave after wave, claiming countless lives. The onlookers felt not the thrill of vengeance but horror. Utter horror. What are these? Watching the near-identical white figures slaughter relentlessly on the death-filled battlefield, their eyes brimmed with shock and disbelief. They'd seen mighty warriors before, Gilgamesh, the demigod king of heroes, Enkidu, the divine creation, and servants like Arjuna, Leonidas, and Spartacus, whose power inspired awe. Seeing them wield strength and dominate the battlefield evoked not fear but admiration and aspiration. But this was different. These white warriors were unlike great heroes like Leonidas or Arjuna. Their combat inspired no reverence, only an eerie dread. No trace of human vitality emanated from them. They killed ahead, repeating the act endlessly, pinning beasts to the ground, piercing them with light lances, tearing them apart. Bathing in the red rain of beast blood, their radiance never dimmed. Under the white light, blood left no trace, and their faces remained expressionless. Even Arjuna felt his skin crawl at the sight. And stranger still. Though their faces were veiled by white light, their outlines were faintly discernible. Many soldiers recognized familiar figures among them, comrades from Rock's various posts or battle brothers from the recent war, unseen since being sent to the ziggurat for recovery. Now, seeing these former comrades again, they were transformed. Calm, expressionless, like weapons forged solely to slaughter beasts. This caused deep anguish. What had happened? Humans of the age of gods had faced demigods, gods, beasts, and disasters, their hearts steeled. But this was beyond what even a strong heart could accept. Comrades, recently fought alongside, now returned to the battlefield in this eerie form. How could they not be terrified? Had other powerful servants, armies, or even undead appeared to fight the beasts, they'd have cheered. But this, it chilled them to the bone. How could they calmly accept their kin becoming such beings? Why had they transformed? A blessing from Sumerian gods? A spell by the king? A deal with the underworld's mistress? Unease gripped the soldiers. They feared becoming these emotionless warriors themselves. Would they still be themselves? When the beast tide was eradicated and Roy executed the 3 demon god pillars, the soldiers' first reaction wasn't joy at victory but fear. Though the ascended warriors had protected them, the dread lingered. Seeing the soldiers' expressions, the ascended warriors retaining some humanity showed sadness but offered no explanations. They bowed deeply to their former comrades, then, obeying the Lord of Hosts, the Father, soared into the sky, leaving Rock. Arjuna and Leonidas didn't idle. One stayed to settle the soldiers, the other rushed to Gilgamesh's ziggurat for answers. Under Romani and Ritsuka's questioning, Merlin didn't play riddles, leading them to Gilgamesh's ziggurat to confront the orchestrator. Hours earlier, arriving at Gilgamesh's ziggurat, they found Arjuna waiting outside, observing rather than entering. Inside, Gilgamesh's furious shouts and the dull thud of fists on flesh echoed. Ritsuka and Mash moved to investigate, but Arjuna, sighing, stopped them, relaying that only Merlin could enter, others should leave. Gilgamesh and Roy are discussing important matters. But Ritsuka tried to protest, but under Arjuna's earnest gaze, she relented, leaving with Mash and Arjuna, leaving Merlin standing, unsure. Damn you, do you realize what you've done? Is this salvation? It's crueler than killing them. Inside, Gilgamesh gripped Roy's collar, lifting him, his other fist slamming into Roy's face. Thud, thud, thud. 1 punch, 2, 3. The demigod's terrifying force struck Roy's face repeatedly. Roy neither used the third magic to heal nor shielded himself with mana, standing plainly, letting Gilgamesh's fists land. PFFT. Blood trickled from his mouth, half his face bruised, yet he made no sound, nor flinched, his gaze fixed on Gilgamesh's furious eyes. Then, quietly. I'm sorry. Sorry? What good is your apology now? Gilgamesh's anger flared, raising his fist again, but Siduri and Quetzalcoatl intervened. King of Rock, stop. Let my master go. Quetzalcoatl demanded. Don't interfere, Quetzalcoatl. Roy called, shaking his head as she moved to separate them. Seeing Roy's serious gaze, Quetzalcoatl halted, sighing. Siduri clung to Gilgamesh's arm, pleading, King, please stop. Roy only made this choice to save Rock. His Majesty, King of Ur, forced no one. It was their choice. Watching the wounded warriors transformed into ascended warriors by Roy, Siduri's heart mirrored Gilgamesh's. Her body trembled. Though the warriors chose resolutely, she couldn't accept it. In her torment, she reached for a falling white light feather, intending to join them. But Roy noticed. As the father, He sensed every ascended warrior bearing the third magic's seed. He retrieved the light seed before Siduri's transformation began, halting her soul's change. Worthy of a high priestess, standing with Ruck's warriors even now. But no. Unlike the gravely wounded soldiers, Siduri was whole, vital to Ruck's operations. She had no need to become an ascended warrior. Moreover, unlike ordinary soldiers, she was Gilgamesh's most crucial aid beside Enkidu. Humans have their selfish desires. So Roy stopped her. Choice? You call this a choice? Gilgamesh paused his blows at Siduri's intervention, gripping Roy's sleeve, demanding answers. Why? Why go so far? I told you selecting a few truly resolved, half-dead soldiers for the battlefield was enough. Why transform every wounded soul in the ziggurat into those eerie monsters? No, Gilgamesh, I see no hierarchy in life. Choices are equal. I couldn't pick a few from many, so I gave them all the right to choose. This is the resolve and choice of Ruck and Ur's warriors. And they're not monsters, but warriors, ascended warriors who sacrifice their humanity to keep fighting. Resolve? Gilgamesh released Roy's collar, snorting coldly, pushing Siduri aside, and returning to his throne. Resolve, resolve. Is this heavy burden what you wanted? Can you bear so many lives and souls? I can bear it. Even if I can't, I'll shoulder this sin. I won't ignore these lives or excuse it as necessary sacrifice. They needed only to follow their heart's choice. The rest, merit or fault, falls to me. You. Gilgamesh's voice trembled, a rare falter. Even he didn't know what choice was right. Was Roy right? Perhaps, as he'd driven off Ruck's beasts, securing safety and time. The ascended warriors were a formidable force, giving them a chance against the final calamity. But he couldn't accept it. Selfishly, he shifted the blame to Roy. Noticing Merlin's entry, Gilgamesh turned, meeting his gaze. Oh, I didn't expect those powerful white warriors were Roy's doing, made from Ruck's people. Gilgamesh and Roy had a huge fight over it. After Merlin's explanation, the inn's atmosphere grew heavy. Learning the ascended warrior's truth, even the ever-optimistic Ritsuka showed sadness. Romani, sharing her sorrow, exchanged a glance with Da Vinci, both awed by Roy's feat. Crafting thousands of servant-level warriors was like a mobile throne of heroes. Such a technique was unheard of. Even Romani's summoning of the 72 demon god pillars relied on the Lord's miracles and demonology, merely summoning existing entities. Not creating or transforming, akin to making something from nothing. Roy's actions were fundamentally different. What's the situation now? Is Roy okay? Ritsuka, closest to Roy, asked urgently. He's fine. After the fight with Gilgamesh, he was. Well, not exactly banished, but he exiled himself from Ruck. He said he won't return until the final battle, heading elsewhere to prepare. How could this? Roy's the one suffering most. Ritsuka said, saddened. Sorry, Ritsuka. My friend's always been like this, unbearably gentle. Though he changed for a time due to certain events, his core hasn't. He can forgive many, but the never himself. Merlin said. Merlin, can we? Ritsuka began. No, Ritsuka-chan. Merlin shook his head, cutting her off. If Roy says he has important work, trust him. Instead of chasing him, let's focus on Gilgamesh's tasks and meet him at the final battle. Gilgamesh's tasks? Exactly. Merlin nodded, tossing a large sack from behind. Clatter, the crisp sound of metal colliding. A pile of colorful gems spilled from the sack, laid before Ritsuka and Mash. So many beautiful gems. How much are these worth? Even Mash and Ritsuka, unfamiliar with jewelry, gasped at the exquisite gems. Money means little to Gilgamesh, holder of the Golden Capital's key. Merlin said. Did Gilgamesh give these to us? But isn't this too much? Ha ha, of course not. Gilgamesh, with his foresight, saw something, pulling heaps of gems and jewelry from the gate of Babylon, handing them to me. He mumbled about that greedy woman being easily swayed by this. We'll act once he gives specific orders. So. Rest well, Ritsuka, Mash. You fought all night, exhausted. Now's the time to recover. With the ascended warriors and Quetzalcoatl guarding, the beasts are no threat. Rest, complete your tasks, and prepare for the final battle. Merlin's eyes flickered with unnoticed sadness. Ruck lay in eerie calm. Though daytime, it was silent, like an empty city. Everyone seemed asleep in their homes. Chapter 222, The Old Man of the Mountain Vroom. Golden morning light bathed the Mesopotamian plains. Rumble. The roar of an engine and a black metal vehicle, out of place in this era, tore across the plains. The blond man in the driver's seat let out a hearty laugh, humming odd tunes. What's wrong, master? Not cheered up by this joyride? This is such a fun thing to do. Tezcatlipoca, known as Tezcatlipoca, said, a cigarette dangling from his mouth, glancing at Roy in the passenger seat. Fun thing. You mean racing? Roy asked. Of course. My era didn't have such entertaining toys. Now that I can play with them, I'm going all out. Tezcatlipoca replied, flooring the accelerator, the jeep surging faster. But can't you fly? And isn't your speed faster than driving? Roy said, surprised by the excitement on Tezcatlipoca's face. At the seventh singularity, Roy had summoned two servants. One, sharing the solar concept with Quetzalcoatl, was Karna, son of the Indian sun god Surya. The other was this figure, the antithesis of Quetzalcoatl's benevolent divinity, Tezcatlipoca, a chief god of Aztec myth. A paramount deity, he governed the first son of Aztec legend, embodying supreme divine power and human fate. Unlike other Mesoamerican gods, he represented no natural force or tribal protector but the impermanence of the world, the lord of the here and now. Omnipresent and elusive as the night wind. Unlike Quetzalcoatl, summoned by this singularity, Tezcatlipoca candidly revealed his identity, explaining his grand saint graph was granted due to the singularity's chaos. You summoning a chief god like me isn't just about mana or compatibility with Quetzalcoatl. The world called for me, and the throne of heroes sent me to quell the disturbance. Plus, I'm curious about you, so I came to check. He said. Seeing Quetzalcoatl here was unexpected, but it makes sense. Our grudges and ties aren't easily explained. I've done countless misdeeds, with enemies everywhere, but Quetzalcoatl is special. We can never reconcile or forgive each other. Due to Quetzalcoatl's prior presence and Tezcatlipoca's initial clash with Karna, Roy was wary of this notorious Aztec malevolent god. His moods and actions were as fickle as the evening breeze, and Quetzalcoatl's scathing opinion of him heightened Roy's caution. As a grand servant and divine entity, command spells held little sway over him, so Roy kept his distance, not demanding contributions, hoping only to keep him neutral. Yet, after a few missions and casual exchanges, Roy found this Aztec god, despised by Quetzalcoatl, wasn't entirely malevolent. He honored contracts scrupulously. Unlike Karna, who obeyed as a loyal hero, or haughty kings like Gilgamesh or Ramesses II, Tezcatlipoca preferred mutual benefit and trade. Everything was transactional in his code. To enlist his aid, one paid a price matching his effort. Since Roy summoned him and supplied ample mana for freedom of action, Tezcatlipoca agreed to confront Kingu. His requested reward was surprising. Not some grand demand, but a gun, a simple, modern firearm. Despite his infamy as a world-destroying Aztec god, he was fascinated by modern guns, vehicles, and technology. After wreaking havoc in Quetzalcoatl's divine realm, he asked Roy for modern weapons, preferably guns. Roy was taken aback. Mystical beings typically disdained crude modern arms, a view held by most Magus, save outliers like Garrett Suguamiya. Yet, as a pinnacle of Aztec myth and mystery, Tezcatlipoca not only respected human technology but was enthralled by weapons and vehicles. In subsequent raids, Roy grasped his temperament, unpretentious, and easily swayed to help with modern vehicles and gear. Familiar with cars and guns, Roy used projection magecraft to craft items meeting Tezcatlipoca's demands. Later, he had Chaldea's Da Vinci provide advanced vehicle blueprints, which he replicated and gifted to Tezcatlipoca. Even the oddly styled black jeep they rode was Roy's projection magecraft, though its absurd horsepower and divine enchantments showed Tezcatlipoca's modifications. Come on, master, lighten up. Dive into the thrill of racing, relax. You've done something incredible, haven't you? Tezcatlipoca said, one hand on the wheel, the other flicking ash from his cigarette. Ignoring Roy's expression, he continued, some choices aren't perfect, or maybe every choice is right. You saved humanity your way. It wasn't flawless, but it's better than doing nothing. No matter how others view your actions, I see no fault in your choices. I bet Quetzalcoatl feels the same. The only one who won't forgive you is yourself. Are you counseling me? Roy asked, surprised. Counseling? Haha. Call it that if you want, but it's my honest opinion. I'm the evil god who devoured the world in a rage. Tezcatlipoca laughed, not pursuing Roy's remark. His words weren't mere comfort but sincere. As a supreme god of impermanence and duality, his perspective transcended human or divine limits. Roy's actions were, to him, the most rational, flawless. Resolve, courage, obsession, noble qualities shone through. Whether others understood was their concern. Roy shook his head, dropping the topic. They'd raced across Mesopotamia's plains for hours, yet Merlin's mentioned underworld entrance remained elusive. Do you actually know the way? Roy asked the Aztec god driving. Strange. I'm sure it was around here. Why can't I find the entrance? Tezcatlipoca said, puzzled, eyeing the flat terrain. He rubbed his chin, tossed his cigarette, and sniffed lightly. This scent. His eyes shifted subtly. What's up, Berserker? Found something? Roy asked. Yeah, I figured out why I got lost. Tezcatlipoca said, standing, gazing into the distance, his eyes tinged red. Reflected in them was a black, isolated valley, pale skeletons, and eerie blue flames, a thick aura of death washing over. It felt like a blade hung over his neck, ready to fall. Yet, this intense death aura posed no threat to Tezcatlipoca, feeling almost familiar as a god of death and the underworld. Your time has not yet come. A low voice echoed, then vanished with the death aura, fading from the world. TCH. They even sent a guy like that? A manifestation of death, or its avatar. Quite a remarkable existence. This singularity's getting interesting. Tezcatlipoca said, retracting his gaze as the blue-flamed skull vanished, a playful smirk on his face. He knew that figure. A formidable being, also a grand servant. He'd thought he was the only grand servant in the seventh singularity, but a grand assassin appeared. More fascinating figures were sure to follow. Perhaps formidable enough to warrant 2 grand servants. How thrilling. He muttered excitedly, grinning. Roy, witnessing this, sank into thought. What did you see? What I saw. Tezcatlipoca didn't hide it, revealing another grand servant tied to mountains and death. He warned Roy, be cautious, master. I haven't dealt with him much, but that guy's a stickler and dangerous. Your soul and fate are oddly peculiar. He might mark you as fated to die and slice. He mimed a throat-slashing gesture, earnestly cautioning Roy. He valued this mana-rich master who didn't restrain him and supplied future vehicles and weapons. An old man with a pale skull mask, wreathed in blue flames. Hearing Tezcatlipoca's detailed description, Roy nodded, knowing exactly who he meant. Grand Assassin, founder of the Husan Order, the Husan who slays Husans, pivotal in the seventh singularity for delivering the critical blow to Tiamat, granting her the concept of death, King Husan. Without his sacrifice of grand servant status, using his saint graft to imbue Tiamat with death in the underworld, the singularity would have ended in defeat. King Husan was key to defeating Tiamat. In Ruck, Roy had sought this old man, hoping for his aid to replicate the original plan of granting Tiamat death. He'd searched long, asking Merlin and Gilgamesh to use clairvoyance, but they found no trace. Even Ritsuko hadn't encountered King Husan. Roy began to suspect his presence altered the timeline, preventing King Husan's appearance in the singularity where human evil was born, with Tezcatlipoca replacing him. If true, it posed a problem. Though a grand servant, Roy wasn't sure Tezcatlipoca could grant Tiamat death like King Husan. If impossible, he'd need alternatives, sealing her or banishing her from the planet. Tezcatlipoca didn't answer, admitting his underworld authority and death familiarity but doubting he could grant a creator goddess death as a servant. He'd need to face Tiamat to give Roy a definitive answer. Now, seeing the true death-granting grand servant, Roy sighed in relief. Worthy of one of his favorite servants, King Husan's appearance brought immense reassurance. All right, master, with that old man's death aura gone, I can pinpoint the underworld's location. Tezcatlipoca said. King Husan's departure cleared the death aura, disrupting his sense of direction. Like a keen leopard, he sniffed, locating Mesopotamia's underworld precisely, guiding Roy to the entrance's surface. Roy cast detection magecraft, confirming the underworld below. As he raised his arm to blast open the ground, a familiar shout rang from the sky. Dodge. Get out of the way. You down there. My man, his brakes are failing again. Chapter 223, Be My Husband. I've got a bad feeling about this. Did you hear something, Berserker? Roy asked, turning to Tezcatlipoca. Sounds like something's approaching. Tezcatlipoca replied. On the wasteland above the underworld's entrance, Tezcatlipoca and Roy caught the sound of something tearing through the sky, accompanied by an indescribable scream. To Roy, the voice was all too familiar. He slowly raised his head, his ice blue eyes glinting, reflecting Ishtar's figure atop Mana. But she was, as before, plummeting from the sky. This time, she was crashing with her celestial bow, Mana, in tow. Had this useless goddess been speeding again? Ishtar? Roy called out her name. Oh? Mesopotamia's infamous useless goddess. Tezcatlipoca remarked, noting her meteor-like descent. Getting hit by that would hurt. They exchanged a glance, neither inclined to catch Ishtar, stepping back as her force hurtled toward them. Boom. A sound like a meteor striking Earth erupted, the ground quaking under Ishtar's impact, dust billowing. A massive black crater formed in the wasteland, Ishtar and Mana nowhere to be seen. Tezcatlipoca and Roy fell into a brief silence. She fell in. Roy said. Yep, she actually fell in. Tezcatlipoca confirmed. That useless goddess had crashed into the underworld in such a ridiculous way. Her absurd entrance was, frankly, foolish. Open, Gate of Kur. Unsure of Ishtar's intentions in the underworld, Roy and Tezcatlipoca seized the opportunity her crash provided. Roy raised his arm, channeling a surge of white mana, slamming it into the ground. Rumble. With a deafening roar, the crater expanded several times, revealing a deep, pitch-black abyss. The distinct aura of Kerr wafted from the darkness. Tezcatlipoca grabbed Roy, leaping into the chasm. That goddess crashing from the sky did us a huge favor, taking out most of Kerr's outer defenses. Tezcatlipoca said. Charging into the underworld so recklessly, her guts are something else. He added, marveling at Ishtar's boldness as they plummeted through the dark abyss, soon landing on Kerr's black ground. Oh? This is Mesopotamia's underworld? Pretty austere. Tezcatlipoca said, surveying the dark surroundings, his expression odd. In the age of gods, the world was like a canvas, with the underworld, human realm, and heavens separated yet interconnected. The heavens were truly above, the underworld beneath their feet. Scaling a high enough peak could reach divine halls, shattering the ground at the right spot, as now, led to Kerr. Unlike his own underworld, this one featured black clay paths suspended over the abyss, dim green flames floating like lanterns, guiding the way. Tezcatlipoca sensed these eerie green flames were human souls. Normally, they'd flicker and wail, but Kerr's soul flame seemed asleep, confined by the underworld's goddess, silently floating in their zones, neither engaging nor attacking the living. Granting rest to the dead? Such gentle management felt overly kind, yet it was a serene resting place. He didn't dislike it. In fact, he grew curious about Kerr's mistress, Ereshkigal. Hey, long time no see, Ishtar. Need a hand? Roy called out, having spotted Ishtar, who'd crashed into Kerr. She wasn't in great shape, clinging desperately to a narrow path with her smooth arms, her body dangling like a wind chime over the abyss, a forbidden depths beyond Kerr, dreaded even by Sumerian gods. Falling there would be worse than death. With Enki and Anya gone from this land, no one would save her. Ishtar gripped the ground, swinging her body, but Kerr's anti-flight wards rendered her beloved mana useless. Her divine power, weakened by entering Kerr, left her too feeble to climb, forcing her to hang, shouting for help. Help. Save me. Anyone, even non-humans. Her tearful, snotty display was utterly ungodlike. Tezcatlipoca, a fellow god, covered his eyes, unable to watch. How could a goddess be this foolish? Were Mesopotamia's gods too protective of her? Help. Ishtar, after struggling, heard Roy's voice, ceasing her sobs. Her face lit up, nodding eagerly. Yes, yes. I'm Ishtar, the celestial mistress of beauty and wealth, goddess of Venus. Pull me up, mortal, and I'll reward you for saving a goddess. Reward? Didn't you say next time we meet, I'd lick your feet? Roy teased, crouching beside her. Huh? That voice. No way. Ishtar's ruby-like eyes widened, looking up to see Roy's familiar, recently encountered face. No way. Why are you in the underworld? She gasped, mouth agape. You vile mortal, you've been stalking me, haven't you? Despicable. You were smitten by my beauty last time, so you showed up now, planning a hero rescues damsel act to win my favor, right? Tezcatlipoca gave a thumbs up, nailed it. Roy was stunned silent by the goddess's delusions. Tezcatlipoca roared with laughter, unable to speak. Chuckling, he slung an arm around Roy's shoulder, teasing, Master, you're something else, scheming to snag this goddess. Quetzalcoatl's already into you, and now you're chasing two divine spirits. Watch out for divine retribution. If you die, come to my underworld, I'll hook you up with a nice gig. I'm not into idiots. Roy said, brushing off Tezcatlipoca's arm, exasperated. I'd rather marry Ereshkigal than this fool goddess. Ha ha ha. Into the underworld's goddess too? You keep surprising me, Master. Tezcatlipoca laughed. You're as bad as the Count. Roy muttered, done with the mischievous god. He leaned over, looking at Ishtar, still lost in her fantasies, shouting, scrutinizing herself, her cheeks flushing. His mood grew more complicated. Why are you blushing, you teapot? He turned, beckoning Tezcatlipoca to leave. Hey! Stop! Ishtar yelped, shocked, shouting after Roy. Pull me up, human. Roy ignored the delusional goddess, heading to find Kerr's mistress. He'd meant to check on Ishtar, but her antics killed his interest. Continuing her nonsense might make it seem like he was pursuing her. Plus, with Ereshkigal and Ishtar's strained relationship, aiding Ishtar could sour things with Ereshkigal, which wasn't worth it. Hey, come back. Pull me up. What are you even doing here? Ishtar roared. Roy replied flatly, definitely not here to save you. Ishtar exploded with rage. She thrashed, screaming in Kerr, abandoned by a mortal without a backward glance. When had she ever faced such humiliation? Born favored by celestial gods, Ishtar was Mesopotamia's freest, most beautiful, and haughty goddess. She acted on whims, her desires always fulfilled. Out of pique, she raised Mount Ebba, revered even by the king of gods. Angered by Gilgamesh, she unleashed the divine beast Gagalana on Ruk. Her every wish was granted, her privilege backed by her loving father, doting grandfather Enki, and her brother Shamash, who, despite their spats, always saved her in danger. But this ordeal jolted her awake. Beyond the gods, no one would indulge her tantrums or obey her commands. Realizing she might hang here for ages, Ishtar's emotions surged. This was the underworld, haunted by spirits and skeletons. With Roy gone, who knew when the next living soul would appear? She might dangle here for centuries. Hey, human, no, warrior. Come back. I won't take your kindness for free. Save me, and I'll grant you a priceless reward, a treasure gods covet. Treasure. Roy's steps paused. Tezcatlipoca's interest piqued at Ishtar's mention of a god-desired treasure. Tell me. Roy said. Hey, knew you'd waver. Ishtar's eyes gleamed, unveiling her trump card, certain no god or human could resist. She shouted confidently, be my husband. I've decided. Though you're a plain human, unworthy of me, the goddess of love, beauty, and harvest, I'll allow it. Save me, and I'll be your wife, sharing my beauty and wealth. By the root, she's Aqua. Roy and Tezcatlipoca exchanged a glance, shook their heads, and walked away. Hey! Come back, come back! I've offered this much, what more do you want? Ishtar cried. Help! I was wrong, I won't be so reckless, please save me. Seeing them vanish, tears streamed down her cheeks, her voice a faint, apologetic plea. In her near despair, a broad hand grasped her arm, a surge of strength yanking her up into an embrace. Really? Drop that commanding tone sooner. Try asking or pleading for help instead. Roy said. Got it now. Roy wasn't petty enough to bicker with a dim-witted goddess like Ishtar. His earlier actions were just frustration at her haughty attitude despite needing rescue, coupled with a desire to teach her a lesson for past encounters. Seeing the willful celestial mistress genuinely apologize and reflect, his goal was met, so he quietly returned to save her. Ishtar, nestled in Roy's arms, stared at his earnest face. For once, she didn't revert to her brash nature, nodding softly, murmuring, I understand. I'm sorry, I won't do it again. I'll trust you this once. Don't be so reckless next time. Roy said. All right, Ishtar, you're a grown goddess. It's not proper to keep clinging. You're free now, so head back on your own. I've got important things to do and can't stay. Oh. Okay. Ishtar said, still dazed, as Roy patted her shoulder, gently setting her down. He placed his left hand on her abdomen, channeling Mana to lift some of Kerr's suppressions, ensuring she could leave despite her weakened divine power. Without lingering or hesitation, he turned toward Tezcatlipoca, waiting nearby. Ishtar froze. Her joy at escape, and her planned taunt, you fell for my beauty after all, died on her lips. He hadn't saved her for her beauty, wealth, power, or status. It was pure, selfless aid, expecting no reward. She'd never met such a person. Damn. Are you mocking me? Thinking I can't offer a worthy reward? Don't underestimate a goddess. She muttered. You dare lecture me? Don't think you can ditch me so easily. And I didn't come to Kerr to fool around. Mulling this over, Ishtar retrieved mana and hurried after Roy. Chapter 224, MP 224, The Mistress of the Underworld. Hey, hey, hey. Stop ignoring me. At least look at me, the goddess of wealth, love, and beauty. Are you a block of wood or something? Ignoring Ishtar's relentless theatrics beside him, Roy kept his gaze fixed on the dark path of the underworld ahead. Tezcatlipoca exhaled a faint smoke ring, and the two continued their steady pace toward the deepest reaches of the underworld. Ah! This scene finally pushed Ishtar over the edge. Furious and exasperated by Roy's utter disregard, she stomped her feet in a fit of rage. Damn it! Don't you want to ask me about Ereshkigal? You didn't come to the underworld to save me, so you must be here for Ereshkigal, right? That woman is nowhere near as easygoing as I am. At last, Ishtar leaped in front of Roy, grabbed his shoulders with both hands, and shook him vigorously as she spoke. You're easygoing? Roy silently studied Ishtar for a moment before shaking his head without hesitation. No. You clueless jerk. I'll take you down. Unable to endure being ignored any longer, Ishtar snapped. Back in her prime, she was the center of attention, fawned over by gods and humans alike. Now, out of consideration for Roy saving her and being somewhat intriguing, she'd gone out of her way to engage him, only to be met with dismissal and distance. Her proud ego couldn't take such a slight, so she lunged at him in mock fury. Naturally, Ishtar, weakened by the underworld's oppressive aura, was no match for Roy. As expected, within just 2 exchanges, he easily subdued her. Settle down, Ishtar. Roy's face was etched with exasperation. No way. You jerk, don't think you can bully me just because the underworld's holding me back. Let's fight again on the surface. Ishtar kept up her defiant shouting. Yo, how lively. Tezcatlipoca remarked. Watching the scene, Tezcatlipoca, trailing alongside, made no move to intervene. He merely smacked his lips, smirking as he observed Roy and Ishtar's antics. This kind of bickering had played out at least 4 times already, and he'd grown accustomed to it. Ishtar, that slightly unhinged Venus goddess, was a mystery. Despite being saved, she insisted on tagging along with him and Roy. Not only that, she kept prattling on about herself and Ereshkigal, trying to bait Roy into asking her about the Mesopotamian underworld. But his master was utterly unfazed, ignoring the noisy Ishtar and pressing forward in silence. Unable to take it, Ishtar would launch into another reckless stunt. Time and again, it was the same cycle. Ishtar attacked, Ishtar got defeated. Then she'd rally and cause trouble again, repeating the process. After a few rounds, Tezcatlipoca had grown familiar with their dysfunctional dynamic. This useless goddess had probably figured out her master's nature. As long as you weren't truly evil or an actual enemy, he wouldn't go for the kill. That's likely why she kept dancing on the edge of his patience. All in all, Tezcatlipoca found their squabbles rather amusing. Compared to a god like himself, Ishtar, manifesting in a possessed state, was far more entertaining. At least she was more interesting than those rigid or aloof types. No wonder the Sumerian gods doted on her. Had enough? Roy gripped Ishtar's arm, pinning her down with ease, his expression tinged with resignation. What do you want, Ishtar? I've already saved you, so why are you still following me? Even if you attack me, it's just pointless bickering, not genuine anger or revenge. What are you after, Ishtar? No way. I'm not done. You're just taking advantage of the underworld suppressing my power to pin me down so easily. Ishtar turned her head away, her expression stubborn. And don't flatter yourself, human. I'm not following you. I came to the underworld to find Ereshkigal too. You're here for Ereshkigal too? Roy's expression shifted slightly at Ishtar's response. He slowly released her arm and pressed further. What do you want with Ereshkigal? Didn't you learn your lesson last time? Or are you here to storm the underworld again? Roy knew quite a bit about the relationship between Ishtar and Ereshkigal, the Sumerian goddess sisters. Unlike Ishtar, the beloved mistress of heaven, Ereshkigal was born to be sacrificed to the underworld, a taboo among the gods and the world itself. In the beginning, aside from the god king and a few ancient chief gods of Sumerian myth, the other gods only knew of Ereshkigal's existence as the underworld's mistress. None had actually seen her. Not even Ishtar, nor her brother Shamash, the god of the sun and law. The god king Enya forbade other gods from entering the underworld to meet Ereshkigal. But Ishtar had always defied her father's commands. After all, if anything went wrong, she had Ninsun and Enki to back her up. So, when Ishtar learned of her sister's existence and the endless darkness she endured in the underworld, she donned her 7 prized divine constructs, blasted open the earth, and ventured alone into the underworld to meet this sister she'd never known. The outcome? It was Ishtar's greatest defeat ever. Not only was she thoroughly trounced by Ereshkigal in the underworld, but as she passed through the 7 gates Ereshkigal had set, she was stripped of all her divine constructs and powers. In the end, she didn't even see Ereshkigal before the underworld's mistress pierced her from afar with a sharp cage of spears, leaving her dangling naked at the underworld's gates until Enki hurriedly came to retrieve her. That underworld journey left a profound mark on Ishtar's young heart. After being thoroughly disciplined by Ereshkigal, Ishtar never mentioned returning to the underworld again. So Roy knew well that, despite being sisters, Ishtar likely understood less about Ereshkigal than he did. Rather than asking her about Ereshkigal, he'd be better off meeting the goddess himself. And to win Ereshkigal over, he'd brought along some thoughtful gifts this time. You don't think I'm following you into the underworld just to pester you, do you? Ishtar glared at Roy's skeptical expression, then shouted, do I look like some idiot goddess who'd linger in the underworld just to mess with someone? Only a fool would do something that stupid. Then what are you here for? You can't beat Ereshkigal on her turf. You're not here to catch up with her, are you? Seeing Roy's clearly doubtful gaze, Ishtar's expression grew exasperated. She continued, Gramps sent me here to find Eresh. Gramps? You mean Enki, the god of water and wisdom? Roy's expression shifted slightly at the mention of Enki's name. Unlike the infamous Ishtar, Enki, one of the 4 ancient chief gods of Sumerian myth, was far more powerful. Not only that, he was the god who loved humans most, second only to the god King Anu in strength. He even fought his brother, Enlil, another mighty ancient god among the Sumerians, for humanity's sake, ultimately banishing him to the abyss. So when Ishtar mentioned this powerful deity Roy had never met, his curiosity was piqued. Was this mighty god planning to aid humanity? Of course. Who else in all of Mesopotamia would dare call themselves Enki besides Gramps? What's going on? What did Enki say to you? Roy asked, intrigued. Not long ago, Gramps, still in the divine realm, sent me a dream. He said Tiamat is about to awaken and will soon return to this land with the authority of regression. Gramps and Father tasked me with fulfilling my duties as a goddess to help Ruk overcome this crisis. At this, Ishtar sighed. But I have a terrible relationship with that annoying Gilgamesh in Ruk. If I showed up offering help, he'd probably mock me for ages. So, I stayed in my temple for 2 days, waiting for Gilgamesh to apologize before I'd help Ruk. So she neglected her goddess duties and defied the will of the god King Undinki just because of a grudge? Roy fell silent, giving Ishtar an odd look while inwardly marveling. Classic Ishtar. But he didn't bother pressing her on it and instead asked, so why did you come to the underworld? And in such a spectacularly foolish way? Isn't it obvious? It was Mana. Mana brought me here. The mention of this sparked a flash of irritation in Ishtar. She glared at the celestial bow Mana floating beside her and gave it a fierce kick. Clang. A sharp metallic sound rang out, followed by, ow, ow, ow. That hurts. Damn it, I forgot my divine power is mostly sealed in the underworld. Tears welled in Ishtar's eyes as she clutched her swollen foot, launching into another round of theatrics. Roy and Tezcatlipoca were momentarily at a loss for words. Though he was reluctant to indulge this foolish goddess, Roy wanted her to continue explaining about Enki. He crouched down and used magecraft to heal her foot. Huh? It doesn't hurt anymore. Not bad, mortal, your healing magecraft is impressive. Touching a goddess's body is a capital offense, but since you had a reason, I'll let it slide this time. Ishtar wiggled her foot, instantly reverting to her usual lively self. Alright, human, that hand that touched this goddess, you have my permission to treasure it. Don't wash it when you get back. Ishtar declared this with utmost seriousness, smirking at Roy's thoroughly unimpressed expression. What's with that look, you jerk? Believe me, I could toss you off this path right now. I believe you. Please don't. Seeing Roy's expression turn serious, Ishtar immediately backed down. Enough fooling around. Finish telling me about Enki, Ishtar. Oh, the rest is pretty simple. Seeing I wasn't doing anything, Gramps probably got impatient. That night, I dreamed he told me to go to the underworld to seek Ereshkigal's help. He said her aid is essential to defeating Tiamat. Then I woke up to find Mana, which I'd been using as a bed, flying on its own. It zoomed toward the underworld at a speed I couldn't control. You know the rest. Ishtar's expression turned sour as she began to complain. Asking me to help defeat Tiamat is already a hassle, but saying I need Ereshkigal's help? Don't they know I have a terrible relationship with that awful underworld goddess? Gramps and Father sure know how to boss me around. You brought that on yourself by showing up in her domain decked out in your divine construct. Roy couldn't help but retort. Huh? So you know about our history too? Ishtar, who'd been facing away, suddenly turned back, slightly annoyed. You don't think I wore my 7 divine constructs just to show off to her, do you? Probably not. You're vain, but not so foolish as to risk entering the underworld just to provoke Ereshkigal. That'd be too stupid, right? Exactly. No idiot would take that kind of risk just to taunt her. Ishtar's eyes lit up at Roy's words, and she eagerly nodded. At least I wouldn't waste my time on something that pointless. I just wanted to show her how wonderful the outside world is. That's not showing off. Roy and Tezcatlipoca were both baffled by Ishtar's bizarre logic. Don't you get it? Ishtar sighed and continued, she was sacrificed to the underworld by the gods from birth, never seeing the outside world. I heard from Shamesh and the other gods that she doesn't like me. Please, I'm the mistress of heaven, adored by all gods. If she dislikes me, she must be jealous, right? After all, she's stuck in that gloomy underground. So I went down there to show her how amazing the outside world is. If she loves it so much, she should just come out. There's no need to stay in that place. What kind of son-dear sister act is this? Listening to Ishtar's explanation, Roy and Tezcatlipoca's expressions shifted. Roy was stunned by the convoluted son-dear dynamic between the sisters, while Tezcatlipoca had completely given up on Ishtar's intelligence. What underworld goddess could just quit her role? That would collapse not just the human world but the entire order of existence, causing chaos even the king of gods couldn't resolve. Such reckless, blasphemous behavior could only come from the spoiled Venus goddess. During their conversation, the trio arrived before a massive stone gate. The aura of the underworld washed over them. We're here. Having been here before, Ishtar was far more familiar with the place than Roy or Tezcatlipoca, who were visiting for the first time. This is the gate to the Mesopotamian underworld? Obviously, yes. The deathly aura here is a bit different from mine, but there's no mistaking this is the underworld. Tezcatlipoca glanced at the gate and spoke. Alright, move aside. What are you standing there for? While the two were still pondering how to open the gate, Ishtar brushed past them, striding boldly forward. Facing the towering underworld gate, she raised her arm without hesitation, channeling mana into the massive celestial bow mana beside her. Open the door, Ereshkigal. Without waiting for a response from the other side, a blue energy beam gathered at the center of mana, growing larger and radiating terrifying mana. Wait a second. Roy's heart skipped a beat at this audacious act. He moved to stop Ishtar's recklessness, but mana had already drawn its bowstring. Boom. A powerful surge of mana slammed into the underworld gate, unleashing a piercing sound. The ripple of mana sent tremors through the entire underworld. Fortunately, the gate wasn't so fragile as to shatter under such an attack, or negotiations would have been impossible. That was utterly reckless. Tezcatlipoca frowned at Ishtar's brash actions. It was his first time seeing a god dare to bombard an underworld gate like that. If someone tried that in his underworld, he'd toss them into the abyss for punishment without a second thought. Who goes there? Just as Roy was about to reprimand Ishtar, a voice, youthful and similar to Ishtar's, echoed from the other side of the gate. Clearly, it was their target. The mistress of the Sumerian underworld, Ereshkigal. Chapter 225, MP 225, Who is more beautiful? Who goes there? A youthful voice, much like Ishtar's, echoed through the underworld. On the other side of the underworld's gate stood their target, Ereshkigal, the mistress of the underworld. Ruler of love and harvest, wealth and beauty, the Venus goddess, daughter of the moon, mistress of heaven, Ishtar. It's me. Open the door quick, Ereshkigal, or I'll blast it to pieces. Ishtar pounded on the gate, shouting with wild abandon. Even facing her sister, the mistress of the underworld who once taught her a painful lesson, Ishtar's innate pride and superiority shone through unabashedly. What an idiot. She's got some guts. Roy covered his face, while Tezcatlipoca stared at her like she was a fool. In the underworld's domain, facing its mistress with such insolence and arrogance, they couldn't fathom where Ishtar found the courage. Even Enki and Anu showed Ereshkigal some respect in the underworld. Where did this goddess, once speared and hung at the underworld's gate, get the nerve to challenge Ereshkigal again? Was she not afraid of being skewered into a pincushion with a single thrust? Open the door. Open it now. Ereshkigal, I know you're in there. I'm not here to mess around this time. Open the door and let me in. Ishtar kept yelling. But contrary to expectations, the scene of Ereshkigal erupting in fury over Ishtar's insolence didn't materialize. The voice beyond the gate fell silent, as if pondering something significant. After a long pause, it spoke slowly. Very well, come in then, Ishtar. I'm looking forward to our meeting. Huh? You're being that cooperative? Ishtar blinked, clearly unprepared for Ereshkigal to agree so readily. Creak. The heavy underworld gate was pushed open by some unseen force, releasing a thick wave of underworld aura. The scent of decay and death made Roy, a living human, and Ishtar, accustomed to the heavens, wrinkle their noses. As expected, this place is as dreadful as ever. But since you're being so sensible this time, I'll let our last encounter slide. With the gate open, a smug grin spread across Ishtar's face. She glanced back at Roy, patted her chest, and boasted, see? A mere underworld gate is nothing to this goddess. Roy clutched his head, his expectations for this goddess's intelligence and tact utterly shattered. She could have mentioned Enki's name outside the gate to let Ereshkigal know their purpose, leaving it to her to decide whether to let them in. At the very least, Tezcatlipoca, a fellow underworld deity, could have opened the gate. Instead, she chose the most foolish, most violent approach to a simple problem. And was she sure Ereshkigal was intimidated or being sensible? Opening the gate so readily screamed of a trap. He could already picture it. Ishtar steps inside, the gate slams shut, and Ereshkigal gives her a thorough thrashing. Roy deeply regretted traveling with Ishtar. He should have left this useless goddess dangling in the abyss and retrieved her only after everything was settled. Haha. Master, is it too late to back out of this contract? Seeing the ominous situation, even Tezcatlipoca let out a nervous chuckle, half joking, I've got a bad feeling about this. It's gonna be trouble. When we get back, I'll request blueprints from Chaldea to build you an airplane and a yacht. Deal? Airplane? Yacht? Tezcatlipoca's eyes lit up, and he nodded decisively. Ha ha ha, just kidding, master. I'm a god of contracts, how could I abandon a job halfway? He gave Roy a reassuring wink. Don't worry. If things go south, we'll ditch this useless goddess. With my strength, I can get you out of the underworld, even if Ereshkigal tries to stop us. Alright, I'm counting on you. Hey. What are you two whispering about back there? Are you coming or not? Ishtar spun around, shouting at the two still murmuring behind her. She was completely oblivious to the fact that she'd already been sold out in their plans. At that moment, Ereshkigal, who had been focused on Ishtar, noticed Roy and Tezcatlipoca. Ishtar. Ereshkigal spoke again. Who are those two behind you? Why bring a living human into the underworld? Oh. There. Ishtar hesitated, about to blurt out that they were here to storm the underworld too, but Roy cut her off. He wasn't about to let her make things worse with her reckless mouth. Greetings, Lady Ereshkigal, mistress of the underworld. Roy offered a polite bow and introduced himself. My name is Roy, a traveler from another world, a magician of the third magic, and a king of Ur and Ruk. I've come to the underworld to seek your aid. You seek my aid? The voice on the other side sounded surprised. Such a request was unheard of. Humans facing hardship always sought the aid of the heavenly gods, never had anyone come to pray to her, the goddess of the underworld. Indeed. Mesopotamia, and the entire world, faces a grave crisis. The prophesied final calamity will devour all living beings. To defeat this ultimate disaster, your power is indispensable. That's why I'm here, to request your help. I see. Well then. Hey. Are you nuts? Just laying out your request like that? This meddlesome, trouble-loving goddess won't just hand you what you want. I got thoroughly trashed by her last time. Before Ereshkigal could respond, Ishtar, standing in front, shouted in shock and began slandering her sister right to her face. Recalling her last venture into the underworld, where she was skewered without warning, Ishtar shivered. Her impression of her sister Ereshkigal was now a mix of pity and fear. Quiet, Ishtar. Roy ignored her outburst, shaking his head slightly and addressing the voice. I must secure your aid. Feel free to test me to determine if I'm worthy. If you have conditions or tasks, name them. I'll do everything in my power to meet your demands in exchange for your assistance. You want me to test you? That's an interesting proposal, human. Ereshkigal said calmly. Indeed, compared to that self-important, oblivious goddess over there, I find your perspective and demeanor far more appealing. Very well, let's put you to the test. At that moment, the underworld gate rumbled. A question something was coming. Sensing an unknown force, Tezcatlipoca and Ishtar went on high alert, while Ereshkigal's tone grew tinged with amusement. As the dark gate trembled, a terrifying authority began to emanate from the depths of the underworld. The mere presence of that fierce power made Ishtar's body tremble. She knew that sensation all too well. It was the same overwhelming authority that had pinned her down before Ereshkigal turned her into a pincushion. Oh? Intriguing. Tezcatlipoca, meanwhile, recognized the nature of this authority. It was undoubtedly on par with the terrifying power of Hades or himself in his divine state, the authority of an underworld ruler. If the heavens were the greatest domain above, that rule didn't apply here. In the underworld, there was no sky. The underworld's ruler was the ultimate law. Even a god king wouldn't claim to defeat an underworld deity in their own domain. What do you want, Ereshkigal? Faced with this terrifying power, Ishtar, once brimming with bravado, now looked petrified. Like a frightened rabbit, she instinctively hid behind Roy, clutching his arm tightly, warily scanning her surroundings for the dreaded spear cages from her memories. But Ereshkigal wasn't about to punish Ishtar right off the bat. Instead, seeing Ishtar so reliant on the young man, she asked with keen interest, human who dares enter the underworld, tell me, who is more beautiful, me, Ereshkigal, or Ishtar beside you? Ha! As expected, that question. Roy sighed, as if he'd anticipated it. This question was a running gag in the seventh singularity, dubbed the underworld's ultimate exam question. He never thought it'd actually fall to him one day. But while it might stump Ritsuka, it was no challenge for him. There was nothing to hesitate over. Hey, you're as tricky as ever, but this is obvious, no need to think. Hearing the question, Ishtar jumped out from behind Roy, confidently declaring to the underworld sky, obviously, it's me Lady Ereshkigal, you are more beautiful. At least, that's what my heart tells me. Huh? Eh? Without a moment's hesitation, his eyes brimming with sincerity and his tone free of any deceit. This question, which baffled the sages and gods of the Mesopotamian plains, Roy answered with ease. The response stunned both Ishtar and Ereshkigal. One was shocked that this clueless guy had unhesitatingly chosen an unseen underworld goddess over her, standing right there. The other was floored by Roy's earnest gaze and tone. In the underworld, as its mistress, she could see through anyone's state. No lie or deception could escape her eyes. If Roy had given such an answer just to curry favor or out of fear of her power, she wouldn't be pleased, she'd punish him. But why? They'd never met, yet he seemed to know her. His eyes so sincere, his words devoid of falsehood. Did he truly believe she was more beautiful than Ishtar? Oh, my master, you've got some nerve. Hitting on the Venus goddess wasn't enough, you're aiming for the underworld goddess too? Tezcatlipoca burst out laughing. I like it, though. If you pull this off, we underworld lords will have plenty to talk about. Are you blind? I'm the goddess of love and beauty, standing right here, and you pick someone else? Quiet, Ishtar. I'm serious this time. Roy wasn't playing around with Ishtar. His pupils shifted to an icy blue, and a single glance, laced with formidable mana, silenced her tantrum. You. This time, he had no patience for Ishtar's antics. To defeat Tiamat, Ereshkigal was essential, and he couldn't afford any mistakes. I know why you're silent about my choice and suspect I'm saying this just to gain your help. But please believe me, this comes from my heart. Roy looked up at the underworld sky, declaring loudly, be it human or god, beauty isn't just skin deep. The beauty of the heart matters just as much. I know who you are and understand your thoughts. After careful consideration, I can say with certainty, you are the flower blooming in the underworld, the most beautiful goddess in my eyes. The most beautiful goddess. Are you serious? Ereshkigal's voice suddenly trembled, laced with nervousness and a hint of shyness. Roy could almost picture her blushing on the other side of the gate. Yes, I'm serious. Well. Fine. You've got good taste. You passed the first test. Come in. The restrictions on the underworld gate vanished. A smile spread across Roy's face. Thank you for your generosity. Ah. He's serious. He's actually serious. Someone really thinks I'm the most beautiful goddess, not some gloomy, decaying monster. Deep within the underworld, in a land studded with countless spear cages, a girl with long golden hair, draped in a short red cape and wearing a golden crown, hid her face in her hands. Her head was bowed, golden bangs covering her face, but a radiant, shy smile shone through. She was clearly overwhelmed by Roy's words. Born to be sacrificed to the underworld, she was its mistress, its deity. In this dark, silent underworld, no one ever visited her. The scenery was eternally unchanging darkness, a prison. She was its prisoner, forever confined, without a life of her own, not even her existence truly hers. As the underworld's mistress, she worked tirelessly for the world's stability, yet all she received was fear and hatred from the living. The outside world mocked her as a wicked goddess of death and decay, a monster imprisoned by the gods, devouring human souls, tormenting life, and envying the joys of the living. That was Ereshkigal. A monster of the underworld, despised by the world, a fearsome goddess to the gods, a pitiful soul dutifully managing the underworld for millennia. The only god who dared visit her, naming her directly, was that infuriating Ishtar. Wearing her 7 dazzling divine constructs, Ishtar came to the underworld to show off, talking about showing her the wonders of the surface and spouting absurd nonsense about abandoning the underworld to go play. Wasn't that mockery? It had to be mockery. Blatant mockery. So she'd harshly disciplined Ishtar and driven her out. Though, she later regretted it. After all, Ishtar was the first goddess to seek her out, the first to talk to her so much. But she'd driven her away, and her fearsome reputation only grew. Still, it was Ishtar's fault for saying such irresponsible things, for flaunting her splendid attire in her face. Yes, she was jealous of Ishtar. Jealous of her freedom, her ability to soar through the skies, to see the beauty of the earth. So when she saw Ishtar return to confront her again, she was surprised. Why come back? Wasn't she afraid of being punished again? She didn't understand. And this time, she brought an unfamiliar god and a human? Seeing Ishtar lean on him, Ereshkigal felt her jealousy flare again. So that's how it was? Bringing a new lover to show off. Very well, how very Ishtar. This time, she'd not only strip Ishtar of her divine construct but take her lover too, humiliate her, teach her a lesson, and ensure she'd never dare offend her again. But Ereshkigal, harboring such thoughts, was caught off guard by Roy's earnest words. Especially when she realized he wasn't saying this to curry favor or seek her help. He was serious. He truly believed she was more beautiful than Ishtar. He genuinely liked her, understood her. Ah. So embarrassing. Ereshkigal, blushing and shy, suddenly thought of something, her expression turning sorrowful. How could anyone understand her? He probably only understood the version of her in his mind. If he saw the real her, this gloomy, terrifying goddess, he'd surely be disappointed. On the other side, Ishtar, who'd followed Roy through the underworld gate, pouted unhappily. Hey, you talk like you actually know what kind of goddess she is, when you've never even seen Ereshkigal. Don't you dare toy with her feelings just because she's naive. or I'll show you how terrifying a goddess's wrath can be. Never seeing her doesn't mean I don't understand her. Ignoring Ishtar's flailing protests, Roy raised his hand, conjuring a pink glow in the air, and smiled. If the underworld's darkness is the earth, then to me, Ereshkigal is the most beautiful flower blooming within it. Her beauty is truly unmatched, surpassing any god. Chapter 226, MP 226, let me see the real you. Hey, what's wrong, Ishtar? Roy noticed Ishtar had suddenly vanished from his side and turned back, asking with a hint of concern. Ishtar, who had been trailing close behind, had stopped in her tracks. She was curled up, her expression tinged with embarrassment. Roy didn't pry into the reason. He saw that her already revealing Sumerian-style clothing was nearly gone. The celestial boat manna and her ornate jewelry had vanished, and even the crucial cloth covering her chest seemed to have disappeared. Idiot! Turn your head back. When Ishtar caught Roy's icy blue gaze, her face flushed crimson. She let out a squeal like a startled marmot, her body radiating steam as if she were a freshly forged iron block. My apologies. Roy didn't linger on the sight. He immediately turned away, not forgetting to warn Tezcatlipoca beside him not to look back. Well, looks like that lady's divinity has been stripped clean, hasn't it? Unlike Roy, Tezcatlipoca, a fellow underworld deity, was the first to notice Ishtar's change. The gates they'd just passed through seemed simple enough, having no effect on Roy, a human. But that was only for Roy. These underworld gates were barriers set by Ereshkigal specifically to counter Sumerian gods. Each gate a Sumerian deity passed stripped away a portion of their divinity and confiscated a piece of their divine equipment. That's why the Venus goddess was in such a pitiful state now. So that's it. Any solutions, Berserker? Roy asked Tezcatlipoca. Solutions, huh? Tezcatlipoca shook his head slightly. This is a restriction set by the underworld's ruler for the gods. It's not my divine domain, so I don't have any good fixes. But one thing's certain, if that Venus goddess keeps following us, she'll likely lose all her divinity and cease to be a goddess entirely. I see. Nodding at Tezcatlipoca's answer, Roy closed his eyes and turned back toward Ishtar. Hey, you! What are you doing? Turn back around. Don't worry, my eyes are closed. I can't see you. Oh, well. Good, then. Embarrassed for the first time in front of Roy, Ishtar's expression was tense. She gritted her teeth and said, this has to be Ereshkigal's doing again. So annoying. She's stripping my divinity, just like last time I came to the underworld. Stripping divinity, huh? Ishtar, should I escort you out? If you keep going, your condition will only get worse. Roy asked earnestly. He'd assumed Ereshkigal's trials would target him, the mortal visitor, but instead, her focus was still on Ishtar. He could understand why Ishtar's sharp tongue and lack of tact might have provoked her. But stripping a girl's clothes in front of men was a bit much. After passing just 4 gates, Ishtar's divinity was nearly gone. What would happen if she crossed the final 3? It was unimaginable, so he wanted to get her out first. Who needs you to escort me out? I didn't come here because of you. Ishtar's expression was defiant. Have you forgotten Gramps' task? Besides, this time, I want to finish what I couldn't say to that idiot last time. Really now? Roy sighed and used projection magecraft to conjure a blanket, draping it over Ishtar to cover her exposed body. You've got some nerve, Ishtar. Seems the lesson from last time didn't stick. Are you going to spout more irresponsible nonsense like before? Ereshkigal's voice echoed from the underworld sky, cool and detached. If you turn back now, I'll restore your divinity and equipment. How about it? This trial has nothing to do with you. You could pass Enki's message to me directly or let this warrior who came to see me handle it. That's not a bad option, right? Mind your own business. I'll do what I want. Clutching the blanket Roy gave her, Ishtar stood and shouted at the voice in the sky. I'm the embodiment of love and beauty. This level of punishment is nothing to me. Compared to you, trying to humiliate me with these tricks, I'm in top form right now. Are you trying to provoke me? Think what you want. Whatever tricks you've got left, bring them on, Ereshkigal. You. A surge of rage echoed from the underworld sky, the aura from the gates growing more menacing. Ereshkigal was clearly incensed by Ishtar's words. An unknown energy rippled beneath their feet. Just as spear cages began to rise from the ground to punish Ishtar, a hand wreathed in white mana swept through. Buzz. A piercing sound rang out as mana clashed with underworld divinity, shattering the black spear cages rising from the ground with a single swipe from Roy. You. Why protect her, trial taker? Why shield this arrogant, infuriating goddess? Huh? Seeing Roy step in front of her, Ishtar froze, then obediently hid behind him, continuing to taunt the sky. See? I've got someone protecting me. You can't touch me now. You gloomy, torment-loving goddess, just wait there. This time, I'll face you and give you a proper thrashing. You. Ereshkigal was about to erupt again, but Roy spoke up. Please stop, Lady Ereshkigal. This isn't like you. It's not something you'd do. Ishtar's mouth is infuriating, and she often does things that upset others, but please believe me, she doesn't come with malice this time. Are you pleading for her? No, I'm just stating the truth. And I don't want to see you do this. You're not an evil god. You're a deity I respect and admire. This time, Ereshkigal didn't respond, but the underworld sky fell silent. The gates ahead opened with a resounding creak. Roy knew Ereshkigal had agreed to spare Ishtar. He looked to the sky and said, "Thank you for your generosity, Lady Ereshkigal." Really? Acting like you know me so well? Deep in the underworld, Ereshkigal frowned, gazing at the water mirror showing Roy and the others, and sighed. But do you truly know me? Don't make me out to be so perfect. I'm the underworld goddess who takes human lives. How am I supposed to face you, to interact with you, like this? She'd heard countless gentle stories from the souls of the dead. She was filled with longing and yearning for the outside world. She wanted to bask in the sun's warmth, watch the sunrise and sunset from beautiful mountains, embrace the blue sky, and smell the fragrance of flowers. Most of all, she wanted someone who understood her. But where there was light, there were shadows. Every gentle story was propped up by tragedy. She was the shadow supporting those gentle tales. If the outside world was a stage where beauty played out, she was the pillar holding it up. Every actor could dance freely on that stage, weaving their own beauty, except her. Actors could change, the stage's decor could be rebuilt, but she, the pillar upholding it, could never change. Death was inescapable for all life. If life had a beginning, it would have an end. Parting through death and returning to the underworld was the duty bestowed upon her by the King of Gods, the law that sustained the world. Ereshkigal had faithfully fulfilled this role from the start. Yet, despite being a goddess dwelling in darkness, diligently maintaining the world's order, she received not encouragement from the gods or reverence from humans, but blame and fear. The gods feared her terrifying power. Humans cursed her cruelty for taking the lives of their kin, friends, and lovers. All tragedies and faults were pinned on her. She was forever the misunderstood, fearsome deity, a monster, a harbinger of calamity in epic tales. It led Ereshkigal to question whether her existence was a mistake. She was only doing her duty, so why did it end like this? Humans died, plants withered, animals perished. Nothing was truly eternal. Death and return to the underworld were life's inevitability. So why was she blamed for everything? She'd done nothing wrong, worked so hard, longed for human acceptance, yet why? Why did it turn out this way? The underworld hadn't seen visitors besides the dead in countless years. Her voice was the only sound echoing in this realm. Unlike the grand, splendid temples and palaces of other gods, her palace was mere rubble. No god would help her build a temple, let alone humans. Even this ruin-like pile of debris was the result of her careful construction and care. She slept on the underworld's cold floor, gazing into the dark abyss, wandering through endless darkness, or meticulously crafting spear cages to collect human souls. Day after day, for millennia. She was tired, weary of it all. Sometimes, she wondered if dying would be easier than this life. If she were dead, she'd feel nothing, right? But that thought only flickered briefly. If even she escaped her duties through death, who would care for the living and the dead? Surely not Ishtar. Ereshkigal. Get out here. After passing the final 3 underworld gates without further interference from Ereshkigal, they easily reached the temple. But the desolate, dilapidated scene was less a temple and more a ruin. Roy and Tezcatlipoca had never seen a god's temple so drafty and broken. Seeing where Ereshkigal lived, Ishtar's emotions surged far beyond Roy and Tezcatlipoca's. Clutching her blanket, she pushed open the temple's door and rushed into Ereshkigal's crumbling sanctuary. Wait a second. Seeing Ishtar's recklessness, Roy tried to stop her, but she was beyond reason. She stormed into the temple, shouting at the dark sky, "Ereshkigal, you're here, right? Come out and face me. I came to say one thing, if you hate this place, just leave. Let those damned, troublesome duties go to Enlil. If you don't want to, I'll drag you out myself. Let this broken underworld be father and Gramps' headache. Ishtar. You hopeless idiot." After a brief silence, a gust of white sand suddenly swirled up. The underworld sands at the temple's base stirred, moving on their own. The white sand spun around Ishtar, coalescing into a pale, massive hand that seized her. What is this? Ishtar tried to break free with her divine power, but suppressed by the underworld and stripped by 4 gates, she was little more than a slightly stronger human. She had no strength to escape a god's grasp. The surrounding winds howled like the underworld's fury. Countless grains of white sand swirled in the air, quickly forming a skeletal giant in a white wedding dress within the temple. While one hand held Ishtar, the skeletal giant's hollow eye sockets burned with blue flames, staring intently at Roy in the temple. "You're Roy, right? As you can see, this is the true face of the goddess you called most beautiful. Ugly and terrifying, isn't it?" Seeing the towering skeletal queen form from underworld sand, Roy frowned, glancing at Ishtar, gripped tightly in its hand, with a helpless expression. "Yes, I've finally seen you. So, human?" The skeletal queen Ereshkigal asked gravely, "Answer my question. Even after seeing this horrific, loathsome form, do you still stand by your earlier choice? Answer me again. Who is more beautiful, Ereshkigal or Ishtar?" A soul-piercing question roared from Ereshkigal, the underworld's judgment laced with a chilling, terrifying aura. Black energy swirled around Roy, frost forming on the ground from her icy breath. This was no longer the playful exchange at the gate. Ereshkigal was serious, her true judgment as the underworld's mistress. Any lie would see his soul banished to the most terrifying abyss. Roy sighed, falling silent. Hey, is that even a question?" Ishtar, clutched in the skeletal hand, mocked the ghastly white skeleton. "Look at your ugly form. Even a brainless beast would know the answer." Silence. "It's not your turn to speak." A flash of anger crossed Ereshkigal's eyes, and she flung Ishtar away with a heavy toss. Eek! Panicking as she was hurled through the air, Ishtar's divine power was fully stripped, leaving her body to fly like a sandbag in free fall. "TCH. I told you to be careful. Now you've learned your lesson." With a helpless sigh, the expected pain didn't come. A familiar hand caught her arm, gently lifting her and setting her back on the ground. Roy raised his head, gazing earnestly at the skeletal goddess, his expression tinged with regret. "I'd love to stick to my earlier answer, but I can't now." "What? So your words were all lies? Liar. Liar. You damned liar." Ereshkigal erupted in fury, the underworld's winds raging. Countless golden spear cages materialized around Roy, lunging toward him. Roy had anticipated her righteous anger. Raising his fingers, he unleashed his vast mana, forming a vacuum barrier that forcibly suppressed Ereshkigal's spear cages. "If it was earlier, I'd have said it was you without hesitation, but not now." "Why?" "You said I was." A bone-chilling frost accompanied the skeletal goddess's furious roar. "No reason." Roy countered her spear cages with his mana, answering calmly, "Because you're not being honest. You agreed to meet me, but how can I see your true self through such a sturdy shell? How can I understand your heart? I don't want to see this white skeleton, I want the real Ereshkigal. So, if you're willing to open your heart to me, I'll give you an answer you'll be satisfied with." Chapter 227, MP 227, Caught on Ereshkigal. Clang. 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 Golden chains and ashen spear cages materialized around Roy, their tricky positioning and terrifying force making it hard for him to keep up. His heartfelt speech seemed to have failed to sway Ereshkigal, instead fueling her anger further. He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. In the underworld, Ereshkigal, as its mistress, wielded unmatched power, so fearsome even the god King Anu would hesitate before her. Her slight anger was enough to overwhelm the spear cages Roy had been suppressing with his vast mana. They shattered his bounded field in an instant. It wasn't that Roy's mana was insufficient or his barrier weak, it was simply that no defensive barrier could withstand the full force of the underworld's mistress. Her spear could pierce through anything as if it were paper. Idiot, dodge. Ereshkigal's really pissed this time. Ishtar, sent to the sidelines by Roy, stared wide-eyed in disbelief. Seeing him surrounded by countless golden chains and spear cages, her face showed rare concern as she shouted a warning. "Shut up. You'll be punished too, Ishtar." Her ill-timed shout drew Ereshkigal's attention. The giant skeletal goddess raised a hand, and as with Roy, countless ashen spear cages appeared, surging toward Ishtar with terrifying force. What a hassle. Tezcatlipoca sighed, preparing to intervene, but Roy was faster. Seizing the moment Ereshkigal was distracted, he tore off the limiter pendant around his neck. White magical flames erupted around him, followed by a blinding black light. With a speed too fast for the eye to follow, he wove through the barrage of spear cages. In an instant, the black light seemed to transcend time, appearing before Ishtar. This was the power Roy trusted most, his pride. He rarely used it, reserving it for emergencies or dire situations. Like teleportation, he materialized in front of Ishtar. Without hesitation, he faced the countless terrifying spear cages in the air and raised his fingers. Barrier, deploy buzz. A surge of strange mana erupted, and a colored light, vastly different from the third magic, flooded their vision. The light carried a hint of floral fragrance, followed by an ancient elven chant. A radiant pillar enveloped Roy and Ishtar. Clang. 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 The colored barrier sprang up, effortlessly blocking Ereshkigal's terrifying spear cages. No matter how she channeled her divine power or unleashed the underworld's might, she couldn't breach the colored wall. How is this possible? The skeletal goddess Ereshkigal's eyes widened in disbelief. How could a human's barrier withstand the underworld's spear cages, feared even by God King Anu? Amid her confusion, a flicker of longing appeared in her eyes. Through the colored pillar, she saw not just Roy but a glimpse of a beautiful world behind him, a paradise she'd always dreamed of. "Is that a sea of flowers?" she murmured. "No, not a sea of flowers. It's the paradise within the reverse side of the world, the land of the fairies, the isolated utopia, Avalon." Roy replied softly. "The utopia, Avalon. It's beautiful. Such a place exists." Ereshkigal's eyes trembled. "Well, Merlin says it's nice, but I haven't been there myself," Roy said, maintaining Avalon's defensive barrier while gazing into Ereshkigal's eyes. "Can you stop now, Lady Ereshkigal? As you see, I've isolated myself in this barrier, just as you've hidden yourself in that giant skeletal shell. Without seeing your true face, how can I give you a true answer? If I chose you just to please you or gain your help, that would be dishonest to myself and an insult to you. That's something I can't do." "Exactly. If you're competing in beauty, come out and face me fair and square. I, Ishtar, goddess of love and beauty, will take on your reckless challenge." Ishtar, hiding behind Roy, jumped out, shouting in agreement. "Hiding in that hard shell, what's that about? You're a goddess. Why don't you even dare show your face? Liar. You're all liars." Ereshkigal muttered at Ishtar's challenge, her grip tightening on the massive golden spear, shattering the temple's floor. "You chose me before, so why hesitate now? Didn't you say appearance isn't the only measure of a goddess's beauty? What's this then? You're a liar. Just as bad as Ishtar." She roared, summoning more golden spear cages to surge toward Roy. Her sudden fury shook the underworld sky and earth. Terrifying mana surged, dark red lightning crackled above, and countless spear cages rose from below, a barrage of devastating attacks converging. The combined force tore through the surroundings, leaving Tezcatlipoca in awe and Ishtar trembling in fear. "Hey, Roy, is this Avalon barrier really reliable? Can it hold against an attack like that?" Seeing the terrifying orb of lightning forming above the skeletal goddess, Ishtar grabbed Roy's arm, asking urgently, "That kind of attack? If it hits, we're done for. What do we do now?" "Scared now, Ishtar. And you, liar? Too late. I'll use the underworld's power to shatter your useless barrier and lock you both in here to atone forever. Gods are such capricious beings." Seeing Ereshkigal's escalating rage, Roy sighed helplessly, but his eyes and words held no retreat. "I won't give up halfway, not just for myself but to save you. Hey, Ishtar." Roy turned to the panicked Ishtar. "Didn't you have something to say to your sister? Say it now. Don't worry, I'll handle the incoming attacks." "Oh. Okay. Got it." Ishtar froze, glancing at Roy, still holding up the barrier. She nodded, muttering a quick, "Thanks." Encouraged by Roy, Ishtar, previously paralyzed by the terrifying force above, found her courage. Standing beside him, she took a deep breath and shouted at the skeletal goddess, "Hey, Ereshkigal, my sister. Gramps and father told me you're my sister, born to bear the underworld's burden, a child bound by duty. But don't just accept that imposed duty. If you're unhappy, if you hate the underworld, fight back. Why let a path you didn't choose bind you, driving you mad with jealousy? If you don't like it, leave. Come with me to the plains and skies of Mesopotamia to have fun. Let this damned underworld and its duties be father and Gramps' problem. We're goddesses, free and unrestrained, that's who we really are. Did you hear that, Lady Ereshkigal?" That's what Ishtar wanted to say. Roy, hearing Ishtar's utterly irresponsible words, shook his head slightly. Classic Ishtar. No heartfelt or comforting words, just brash, unreasonable demands that might backfire. But that was fine, it was Ishtar being Ishtar. And she conveyed her true feelings, hadn't she? She's not here to show off. Her words may sound reckless, but they're from the heart. Roy stood shoulder to shoulder with Ishtar, gazing earnestly into Ereshkigal's empty eyes, burning with ghostly green flames, and explained firmly, "Ishtar genuinely wants to help you, to take you out of the underworld. You may not have truly met or understood each other, but you're still sisters, aren't you? Instead of fighting, why not resolve this peacefully, like sitting down to talk?" Despite Roy's efforts to mediate the sisters' conflict, goddesses were goddesses. Ereshkigal, in her fury, didn't listen. The giant skeletal goddess opened her maw, letting out a piercing scream. The golden spear in her hand, infused with the underworld's raging lightning, surged with power. "Roy, is it? You've got some nerve, but you're just a human. A liar, acting like you know me. Wait till I rip out your soul and lock you by my side forever, then talk. The skeletal goddess Ereshkigal roared, her power coalescing into the spear, far beyond mortal resistance. Its divine might, at the peak of godhood, shook the entire underworld. Roy knew words alone wouldn't sway her now. Her anger wasn't just about Ishtar's taunts but the betrayal of her supposed understander. Her chant echoed through the underworld, the heavens have an endless sea, the earth a prison, my heel is the underworld's wrath. The skeletal goddess drove her golden spear, crackling with crimson lightning, into the ground. Terrifying power surged around Avalon. Ishtar, witnessing this, was utterly terrified, her earlier bravado gone. She cowered behind Roy, seeking safety. Facing this divine might, Roy's eyes flashed with resolve. In the underworld, Ereshkigal's unleashed power matched a chief god's full strength, far surpassing Quetzalcoatl's restrained servant form. Even Tezcatlipoca, a grand servant, might not match such an attack. Without Avalon, Roy wouldn't even try to resist, he'd flee without looking back. But he needed Ereshkigal's help and to touch her heart with his actions. Running would mean losing that chance. So, mere underworld power? Watch me push it back. Avalon's not just for show. Fully deploy, Avalon, the utopia isolated from the world. As Roy unleashed his full power, pouring endless mana into the glowing orb at his chest, Avalon's light grew blinding. The colored pillar surged with a might rivaling the underworld's, piercing the gloomy sky, shining brilliantly against the golden spears and crimson lightning. Manifest, blazing temple. Reflect well, the forge that treads the underworld's peak. Boom. With the final chant, crimson lightning poured from the underworld sky, crashing into the radiant colored pillar. The dark ground trembled, ghostly blue flames flickered, and the underworld's earth shattered. Countless ashen spear cages erupted with world-splitting force, intertwining with the sky's lightning, unleashing a terrifying spectacle. In an instant, Avalon's colored pillar was swallowed by the lightning and spears, the entire underworld consumed by their clashing energy. Roy and Ishtar vanished from the underworld. Only the ruined temple and endless scorched earth remained. Did they die? Ereshkigal, having unleashed her strongest attack, stared in shock at the colored pillar engulfed by lightning. Regret flickered in her eyes, her hand trembling as it gripped the spear. She hadn't meant to kill Roy. She just wanted to hear the truth from her understander. Did he truly like her, or was it mere flattery? What was she in his heart? But she didn't know why, but seeing Ishtar, her emotions spiraled out of control. And seeing Roy protect her and lecture her, she felt a piercing betrayal. So she. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you, but why did it turn out like this? With silent sobs, the giant skeletal goddess faded. Ereshkigal descended from the air, gazing at the ruined temple and the vanished Roy, her eyes filled with sorrow. She'd finally had an understander visit her, only to kill him. She should have been calmer, given him a chance to explain. Dishonest. Yes, she'd prepared to meet him but hid behind that skeletal form to test him, even forcing him to answer. If that wasn't dishonesty, what was? She'd ruined everything again. She truly was a useless, wicked goddess. Perhaps a calamity like her deserved to be locked in the underworld forever. As Ereshkigal wept softly, two warm fingers gently touched her forehead. Finally caught the real you, Ereshkigal. That was quite a lot of trouble. A wry male voice sounded. Huh? Ereshkigal looked up in shock, seeing a young man with short black hair standing before her, wearing the same smile as when they first met. It was Roy, he was alive. Despite that world-shattering attack, he stood before her unscathed. How? How is this possible? How are you unharmed? What is this? His fingers gently pressed against her forehead. At such close range, Ereshkigal panicked. She couldn't fathom how Roy survived that attack unscathed. Why didn't he attack her? Why could he still smile at her? Damn it. Realizing her true face was exposed, Ereshkigal tried to recover from her lapse, reaching for the fallen spear to strike again. But she froze. A warmth like the sun enveloped her, and she stiffened, standing dazed. The unfamiliar sensation overwhelmed her, and the golden spear, poised to strike, lost its glow. She was being embraced, by her understander, the first embrace since her birth. This strange feeling was so warm, like a sun she'd never known. You've worked hard, Ereshkigal. Chapter 228, MP 228, Praise the Sun. What does the sun taste like? For many creatures living under its light, it's hard to give a precise answer. The sun is the sun, a blazing orb hanging in the sky, radiating light and heat. If pressed to describe it, the only sensation might be its searing intensity. But today, Ereshkigal found her answer. A unique answer, just for her. The sun's taste was warm, Serene, a warmth no flame could replicate. It carried a scent. Intoxicating. Like an embrace. In the dim underworld, Ereshkigal, stripped of her skeletal goddess shell, basked in the sun's warm embrace. Her body, long accustomed to darkness, trembled involuntarily as it felt this unfamiliar warmth. Sensing a presence so unlike the underworld's chill, Ereshkigal's amber eyes widened. She stared in shock at the mortal daring to embrace her, then, realizing the situation, her face flushed red, her heart racing with panic. Why you hugged me? Ah. He actually hugged me. What do I do? What do I do? A mortal hugged me. So embarrassing, so embarrassing. But it was so warm. Like a tranquil sea of flowers bathed in sunlight. Was this the sun she'd always chased? She stole a glance at Roy's profile, her face burning even redder. In this moment, her mind nearly short-circuited. Ereshkigal didn't know what to do, so she sat obediently on the ground, letting Roy hold her gently, closing her eyes to savor this hard-won warmth. Until Roy stood, extending his hand to her with a smile. Need me to help you up, Lady Eresh? Ereshkigal, legs numb from kneeling too long, looked up in a panic at Roy's outstretched hand. She wanted to take it and stand, but her shy body, still reeling from his embrace, seemed too weak to move. This was way too embarrassing. She screamed inwardly. Seeing this, Roy just smiled, shook his head, and took her hand, lifting her gently and setting her steadily on the ground. So light. TCH. Thank you. Ereshkigal, suddenly lifted, grew even more flustered. She quickly steadied herself, pulling away from Roy and stumbling back several steps, her panic even more evident. Am I that scary? I'm the one who's been taking the brunt of it, you know. Seeing her flustered reaction, Roy's expression dimmed with a touch of disappointment, then he teased, your battle stance earlier was pretty imposing, though. It gave me quite a scare. I'm sorry. Ereshkigal waved her hands, stammering a response. She was genuinely afraid of Roy, not of his power, but of facing him after her actions. He was the only one who'd came to understand her, yet she'd treated him so harshly, nearly killing him. Sure, it was partly because Ishtar's taunts had set her off. But now, calmed down, Ereshkigal felt she'd gone too far. She'd actually tried to kill him. A wave of indescribable guilt welled up. I didn't mean to hurt you, I just. Ereshkigal fumbled to explain her actions, but seeing Roy's smiling face, she lowered her head, murmuring, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I was too impulsive. Haha, it's no big deal, Eresh-chan. You did get a bit carried away, but we're all fine, right? No one's blaming you. You just threw a tantrum in your own home. Letting it out like that probably felt good, didn't it? Roy looked at Ereshkigal, her head bowed in remorse, and didn't press or blame her. Smiling, he said, as an apology, I went through some trouble, but seeing your true face and getting a hug from the most beautiful goddess? Totally worth it. And now, I can finally answer your question properly, Lady Ereshkigal. Roy gazed into her amber eyes, saying earnestly, you are the most beautiful goddess in my eyes, the fairest flower blooming in the underworld. You, and you alone. At such close range, feeling Roy's breath and seeing the sincerity in his icy blue eyes, Ereshkigal felt her brain overheating. Her face turned as red as molten iron, steaming, her eyes and words losing all reason. She had no idea what to do. Unlike Ishtar, these near-confessional words were a first for her. Though she'd heard of lovers' tales from departed souls, this was happening too fast. They'd only just met. Agreeing now, wouldn't that make her seem too forward? But rejecting him, wouldn't that hurt him? And with her skeletal form. Right, her skeletal shell. She touched her face, then her body. No way. The sensation wasn't the ugly skeletal shell but smooth skin. She was in her true form. In Roy's view, she was a beautiful goddess with long golden hair, strikingly similar to Ishtar but clad in a distinct black cloak and undergarments, with soft, plump legs. Her face was nearly identical to Ishtar's. Ereshkigal suddenly realized, right, I dropped the underworld's disguise earlier. Awakened by Roy's words, still caught in shame and guilt, she noticed her disguise was gone. Her earlier emotions had been shown in her true form. Which meant. Ereshkigal collapsed to the ground, her expression frantic. You saw it, didn't you? You saw everything, right? My embarrassing state, and you already knew my true appearance and who I was, didn't you? You weren't surprised at all. Haha, you caught me. Roy looked at the mortified Ereshkigal, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Of course he knew her true form. Golden hair cascading like a waterfall, a black cloak starkly different from Ishtar's attire, soft legs, and a face nearly identical to Ishtar's. She was summoned alongside Ishtar but was usually too busy with underworld duties to share a body. I knew from the moment I saw you. Why didn't you say so? That makes my disguise look as foolish as Ishtar's. Ereshkigal covered her flushed face with both hands. If Roy already knew, her skeletal shell, conjured with underworld power, must have looked like a child's tantrum in his eyes. So stupid. Did you think it was funny? She pressed. Roy thought for a moment, then replied, a little, but you seem to be enjoying it, so I played along. Ah. A pained, marmot-like scream echoed through the underworld from Ereshkigal. This is... Roy covered his ears, bending slightly with a helpless expression. He was about to comfort the near-mortified Eresh when... Shut up. Who told you to act so stupid from the start? Ishtar, with zero sense of timing, popped up behind them. How long are you two going to flirt? Skull-crushing grip. Roy roared, grabbing Ishtar's head with one hand and shaking it vigorously. Can't you read the room? The mood was perfect. Ow, let go. Who the one deceiving innocent maidens? Messing with me, a goddess, wasn't enough, you're going after Ereshkigal too? Don't get greedy, human. I haven't even settled the score for you picking Ereshkigal over me. I'm clearly the more beautiful one. Ishtar grabbed Roy's arm, retorting fiercely. His response was a flawless throw, learned from Quetzalcoatl. Wah! Grabbing her shoulders, he sent the screaming Ishtar flying. Well. The perfect mood was thoroughly ruined. He'd been so close to winning Ereshkigal's heart and securing her help, but that blasted Ishtar always found a way to mess things up. Was he cursed to clash with her? Roy sighed helplessly. Flirting? Ereshkigal, meanwhile, was lost in thought over Ishtar's flirting comment. Eresh-chan? No flirting. That's way too fast. Roy fell silent, unsure what to say to her, lost in her delusions. Ishtar, undeterred, returned to Ereshkigal's side, sparking a heated debate. He vaguely caught snippets about whether he was a scumbag, warnings not to fall for a bad guy like him, and suggestions to lock him in a spear cage for slow taming and training. Such ferocious words left Roy, the third party, speechless. But seeing the usually discordant Sumerian sisters now standing together, chatting and laughing, he couldn't help but smile. If only they'd shift from discussing how to guard against him to how to save this singularity together. Seeing Ishtar and Ereshkigal deep in conversation, Roy didn't interrupt their sisterly bonding. Shaking his head, he turned to handle what he needed to do, walking off. The underworld temple, blasted to pieces, was reduced to scorched earth, cliffs, and scattered debris, making the already desolate underworld even bleaker. At the temple's edge, amidst the chaotic rubble, Tezcatlipoca sat on a boulder, smoking a cigarette. Yo, master, good to see you alive. Lucky those goddesses didn't split you in half. Seeing Roy approach, he teased. You've got some nerve. A servant abandoning his master to escape early. That's bold. Roy grumbled, as an Aztec chief god, you're somehow less useful than Merlin. Ha ha, sorry, master. I didn't want to get mixed up in your goddess drama. Plus, I knew with Avalon's protection, the underworld goddess couldn't hurt you, so I left with peace of mind. Besides, I'm still here waiting for you, aren't I? Fine. Hearing Tezcatlipoca's flimsy excuses, Roy sighed, exasperated by the shameless grand servant. But he wasn't here to chew him out. He had more pressing matters and wanted to consult this expert. Getting straight to the point, he shared his next plan with Tezcatlipoca, asking for advice. Oh? Hearing Roy's idea, Tezcatlipoca's eyes widened. He spat out his cigarette, his expression turning odd. Master, I didn't expect you to plan something this wild. What do you think? Can it be done, berserker? Well, it's a hassle. But, master, you asked the right guy. Can it be done? Who do you think I am? I've got plenty of experience with this. Then I'm counting on you. No matter what, that guy's a scumbag. A liar. So rude to me from the start, and now this. Neither father nor Gramps treated me like that. If I weren't indebted to him and couldn't beat him, I'd teach him a lesson. What? That's your fault for acting reckless and getting punished. Ereshkigal retorted after hearing Ishtar's embellished tale. You've caused enough trouble with your reckless flying. Why haven't you learned, Ishtar? TCH, mind your own business. You hid in that skeleton, too scared to show your face. You were so eager to strip me, but when it came to facing him, you chickened out. Ishtar bristled. That's still better than you, the clueless, troublemaking goddess who needs Roy to save and protect her. You. Watching the sisters' passionate bickering and exposing each other's flaws, Roy, observing from afar, didn't know what to make of it. He wasn't sure if their relationship could be called good now. But at least it had thawed, hadn't it? As they debated whether Roy was a scumbag and whether to lock him in the underworld for reflection, reaching a fever pitch, Roy and Tezcatlipoca began their plan. Born of light, shining in darkness. Roy raised his palm, a dazzling white light gathering at his fingertips, spiraling upward under his precise control, coalescing in the air. Light, vibration, heat, monostability, the transformation between soul and matter. He closed his eyes, recalling Tezcatlipoca's instructions, and began shaping the white orb according to his vision. As Roy's hands worked, the white light grew larger with surging mana, forming a massive white sphere tens of meters tall, which he released into the underworld sky. Coalesce, newborn sun. He poured vast mana into the orb, the white light seeming to brew something in the sky. The spectacle drew the attention of Ereshkigal and Ishtar, still arguing. They stared, stunned, at the white orb rising in the underworld, followed by light, heat, or rather, warmth. What a pain. Making a sun, even a simplified one, is no easy feat. Nodding at the released white sun, Roy leapt down, looking drained. Creating that pure white sun had cost him significant power, and even he needed time to recover. Still, he immediately handed a milky white spark imbued with third magic energy to Ereshkigal, saying, "Take this spark and light it yourself. It's my gift to you." You made a sun for me?" Ereshkigal realized what Roy had done. "Go, Eresh. Thanks to that guy, we finished it. It's just a simulated sun, not a true star, but it's enough. Go on." Roy smiled, patting her shoulder. "Light your sun." Clutching the third magic spark, Ereshkigal took deep breaths, tears welling in her eyes, unable to express her feelings. She floated up, approaching the newly risen white sun, and placed her hand at its center. Instantly, a blinding white light erupted in the underworld. The endless darkness plaguing the underworld for millennia vanished, the realm bathed in radiant sunlight, yet, strangely, it wasn't hot. The dead, seeing the rising pure white sun, knelt in reverence. In this era, the sun symbolized light and hope. This new sun rising in the underworld gave these souls renewed hope. Let's praise the sun together. Under Ishtar's shocked gaze, Roy turned, raised his arm high, and praised the newly risen pure white sun.